Welcome to Ex MachiNation. Join us as we explore the mysteries of this world. Cryptids, monsters, macabre tales, and horror stories abound. Could they be true? Are monsters real?
Good evening, folks, and thank you for joining us on another edition of Ex MachiNation. Join me in the house tonight is Robbie Rip Rains, my brother from South Carolina. Robbie, how the heck you doing, bud?
I'm doing good, brother. How are you?
Doing all right. Steve's at work tonight, and I don't think we're going to have a doc sighting because last time I heard he was still in Texas teaching classes. Maybe we'll have a doc sighting on Saturday. We'll just have to see how things turn out, but hopefully that now that his schedule is starting to free up a little bit, we'll see a little bit more doc. Robbie, what have you been up to lately?
Getting ready for school start back tomorrow.
Oh boy, I bet you're excited about that.
Yeah. Excited to see the little tykes again. But this this is my first official full year back. So tomorrow's my first official day one in about 4.5, 5 years. So it was a lot of running around trying to make sure everything was ready to go on my end. So
well, when I was a kid, I did not ever look forward to school starting back up.
I didn't either when I was a kid, but now that I work in the school and the alternative is riding around on the road, I'm like, yeah, let's go. I'm ready for school to start back.
You know, I never worked as an SRO, but it always looked like it'd be pretty interesting. I got several friends who've been SROs.
You know, and I tell people this all the time, besides being a canine handler, it's been my favorite part of my 30-year career has been in the school, and especially the school I'm in now, because my administration is just amazing.
I'm glad to hear that. I mean, I've worked for some administrations that were less than desirable.
Yeah. Chief will ask me all the time. He said, "What are you paying them up there?" I said, "What are you talking about, Chief?" He's like, I get emails from the principal all the time talking about how great a person and you're the greatest SRO ever. And he said, "You got to be paying them." I'm like, "Shut up, Chief." But yeah, present company excluded because Rodney's in there. He'll tell you that it's a very political position being an SRO. And matter of fact, Rodney was the first one that told me that when I decided I wanted to go into high school after he offered it to me. He's like, this is a different type of law enforcement. And he was right. I mean, you cannot go into a school and police the same way you police on the street. It doesn't work that way. And really, if you want to think about it in this term, and it's a really good way to think about it, you're kind of like the chief of your own little city. You got the principal, who's the mayor. You got your APs, who are your city council members. And you got the regular town folk, who are your kids and your parents and your teachers. And it really works out that way. So you're in charge of your police department.
He wants to know what Funko Pops you have.
Wyatt, Morgan, and Doc. Courtesy of my brother D.A.
Happy to help, man. I had extras. So tonight we're going to talk some of the more interesting cases of Dogman. I know I'm kind of excited for this one, and I know it's something that you and I kind of have near and dear to us.
Oh yeah, it's always been. We've said it before. Werewolves have always been my favorite monster, if you want to call it that. But once I found out they were a cryptid too, I was like, really? I get the werewolves in there with Bigfoot? Cool. So yeah, this is fun to me. I love this part of it.
But I had that sighting, that daylight sighting in LBL. But when I saw it and it realized I had seen it, it took off. At no point in that entire exchange did I feel like I was in trouble. That night, you, me, and Noah were in Joe Bald. We were in trouble.
Yeah. Same feeling that we had that night in Joe Bald, I had that night in LBL. Same exact feeling. And that night in Georgia, me and Jessica and her son, same thing. So that's 3 times of all the times that I've been out in the woods and been looking, and even just being in the woods before I really got deep in the woods, so to speak, pardon the pun on this. That's the only 3 times that I've felt like, oh crap, something could happen. Was that time we were in Joe Bald, the time in Georgia, and the time in LBL.
I've had quite a bit of time that night that we were in Joe Bald, and I really feel like it was trying to draw us in.
Oh, the exact same thing that it was trying. There was 3 of us, right? It wasn't worried about 3 of us. Not in the LBL. I think whatever was trying to separate a couple of us out, and that night in Georgia, I feel like it was just a plain out. If I hadn't turned around when I did, I think things would have been a lot different. It'd probably been a lot worse.
Well,
I don't know that I'd have been sitting here talking to you right now.
When we were on the ground in Combs Ferry, there were 7 of us, and we were all pretty well armed. But that whole time we were there, I felt like we were being watched, but I never felt like we were being hunted like we did that night in Joe Bald. Just a totally different feeling.
Yeah, and it's weird how different it felt, because, and me, you know, I talked about that after we left Joe Ball, the when we went back in there, that whatever, however many days later, we all 3 talked about how weird it was to have that different feeling that it felt from the first time we were at Joe Bald, and then Combs Ferry. You knew something was there, but then the other night in Joe Bald, it was just like, this is just a regular place. So basically, we got all 3 feelings within 10 miles of each other, and it's, I don't know, it's weird to have that, especially when you're in the almost exact same area, to have that feeling like, okay, something's after me, something's trying to do something to me, something's trying to get me, but then something's watching me, but I don't feel like it's trying to hurt me. I just feel like it's wanting to know what I'm doing here. Sorry, I was answering the chat.
Little Patty's here. Hey, little Patty. Yeah, I was looking at some of the comments in the chat. Yeah, folks. Oh, Misty's in the chat. How you doing, Misty? Feeling pretty good. Doing a lot better. If you can see it very well, but it's healing up a bit. The adhesive on it's starting to come off. Probably be another week or so before it completely comes off. I drove today for the first time. They were telling me I shouldn't drive for 2 weeks, but I went ahead and drove today. I just didn't use my left arm at all, and it was nice getting back behind the wheel. I can tell you that. But it also felt weird because I knew I didn't want to use my left arm. I'm not supposed to raise it or move it real quickly because they're afraid it might tear open that incision. But I can feel right here in my chest. There's a little lump. I can feel where that titanium pacemaker's at, and it's going to take some getting used to, because it's at the point now where it still hurts if I move wrong. But for the most part, it's just like a dull ache that I'm constantly aware of. That where the pacemaker is at, they basically opened up my chest and then cut a spot in underneath the muscle and tucked that pacemaker under the muscle and put it back in place. So it's going to take a little while for me to get used to that. But other than that, really, I think the worst of the pain is gone, barring me falling on it or getting hit or, overusing the arm. Been walking with Noah and getting around, so I feel pretty good. I'm breathing better. I feel like my color's been better. So I think overall, I feel pretty good, and I'm hoping that trend continues, because I definitely want to get back out in the woods.
Yeah, just speaking back of the woods, like we were talking about, how would you categorize the 2 as far as how you felt that first time we were in Joe Ball versus Combs Ferry?
It's definitely different. Like I said, in Joe Bald, it was definitely more threatening. It felt like we were being stalked. Like if one of us had gotten too far away from the others, we might not have seen him again. However, when we were in Combs Ferry, like I said, I felt like we were being watched, and I feel like we were being watched from more than one direction. But at no point did I really feel threatened. It was more curiosity. What the hell are you doing here? That kind of thing. And since we weren't, making a fuss or doing anything stupid, I don't think we provoked anything's anger. But Joe Bald was totally different. It was from the get go, from the minute we got out of the car. I'm like the ambience, the feel of the air was just electric. It was. I knew immediately we were being watched. And when we started seeing that eye shine getting closer to us, I knew, we are definitely being, we're being targeted. Whether or not it's going to come barreling out at us is yet to be seen. But in that moment, I knew it was watching us, and it was watching us with directed intent. Hey, ED Testerman, what's up, buddy?
Yeah, that's just it. And I know it's hard for us to put it in descriptive terms. Well, maybe not for you since you're a writer, but it's hard to put it in descriptive terms if nobody has been there to feel that how oppressive. I guess that's a fair term to use. That first time the three of us went to Joe Bald, that's why why it freaked me out so bad, or not freaked me out, I guess, but just I couldn't wrap my mind around how normal it felt the second time we were there because of how oppressive it was the first time. It's like stepping into a different world, but then like Bizarro Land. I mean, it's just like extreme night and day difference. But like I said, I never felt like we were in much danger at Combs Ferry, though. I felt like we were, like you said, I feel 100% with you that we were being stalked that first night in Joe Bald.
Well,
And it
that's
was
the same feeling I got that night I was down in Demumbers Bay by myself. I definitely felt like something was trying to get closer to me, like I had attracted something's attention, and that's why I bugged out of there when I did. But I think if I'd have like ignored that feeling, I might have been I might not have come out of Demumbers Bay that night.
yeah, that well, and there again, when me and Taylor and Tyler and Johnny and then we're out there, same exact feeling that we felt that night in Joe Bald was it. It's
Ryan,
just
if you can produce eye shine, I really will worry about you, dude. Humans can't produce tapetum lucidum, but if you can do it, man, I'm going to start thinking that the Wendigo guy might be more of a well placed name instead of a nickname.
but so I guess to put them in perspective, I felt like I agree with you. I can't remember if we were talking about this backstage or we already said it. We felt like at Joe Ball they were me, you, and Noah. It was trying to draw all three of us in.
Oh yeah, definitely.
It didn't care that there was three of us. It was trying to it wanted us to come towards it, and I think you caught in on that, and that's why you get Noah to grab to do his Robbie wrangling because I was
Yeah,
I
you were
was
kind of
yeah.
heading off on your own.
Oh yeah, I was the head
That
down,
was
hard charging.
that was one of those nights I was glad I had the nose of the car facing out.
Yeah, but then, at LBL, I felt like it was a coordinated effort by multiple, whichever ones they were. And I think that was probably Dogman that were out there messing with us that night. But I think they were trying to, weed some of us off so they could get the jump on one of us.
Mm-hmm.
trying to separate us, herd us out. You've seen how wolves will do that. You've seen how big cats will do that. It's just the way it felt. And
there's another abandoned campground on Table Rock Lake, and I can't remember if it's called Big Bend or Big Bear, something like that. It's down by trying to remember the name of that town. Shell Knob. It's down by Shell Knob. Noah and I drove down there one night. Got there just as it had gotten good and dark. That was much like the night we were in Combs Ferry. I really didn't feel anything off-putting about the place. There was a number of times I felt like we were being watched, because Noah and I would stop and just sit and listen for a bit. And there was a number of times I felt like we were being watched, but nothing really approached us, and I didn't really feel like I was in any real danger. So we hung out down there for a while, and then finally left. But because the actual campground is blocked off, you can't get into it. It's not quite as bad as Combs Ferry. They didn't bulldoze it off, but they put a big steel gate up. And with just the two of us, I didn't want to hike back there. If we'd have had you and Doc, man, I'd have gone back there for sure. But I would still definitely like to get back in there. I just want to take a group.
Yeah,
Big Bay. Yeah, Dee says it's Big Bay. And it looked like it was a really pretty place too. I mean, we got there after dark, and even in the dark, it was still kind of a really pretty quiet place. So I imagine the campground was really nice.
All these places are that way though, DA. Every place that you took me to, was like, why are these places still shut down? I mean, even this Middle Cave, we went back there, it's remote, it's out of the way, but that was beautiful back there. I mean,
yeah, it sure is. A little hard to find, but
yeah. I mean, that's one, out of the way and really remote but there can be so much done with places like that, and there's got to be a reason that I mean, I don't know.
Well, those are all primitive campsites, so it's not like maintaining it was costing them much.
Yeah.
When during the camping season, those places were always packed.
Yeah, it's something. Don't stir the Kool-Aid with that. I mean,
right, exactly.
You don't just like we've said before. If they were understaffed, they couldn't afford to pay people to come in there and staff it and clean it.
These were all closed years before COVID.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying.
You can't blame it on staffing because of COVID. In Combs Ferry's case, it's probably been closed 30 years.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. You don't have that excuse. You can't say, "Oh, it was this or it was that," because it was closed way before that.
Right. Edie Testerman says he's talking about Big Bay. He says it's so beautiful and peaceful until the locals show, and I'm not talking people. So I only knew about Big Bay after it closed. I didn't know it was even there. I haven't spent a whole lot of time down on the Shell Knob end of Table Rock Lake. Most of my stomping around has been near the dam and down closer to Silver Dollar City and along Kimberling City and that area. That end of the lake was the area I'm much more familiar with. But I want to start getting up to the other end because it's less populated, not as many people. Speaking of Table Rock Lake, though, the night we went into Combs Ferry, Wyatt went with us. Wyatt, who's in the chat, and then Richard, the guy that took us in on the boat. Richard sent me a text with a video he shot, and if you got to listen to it with headphones and turn it all the way up. So I'm not going to play it on here because it would be impossible to hear. I mean, you've really got to have a good set of headphones. But at the beginning of the video, if you listen, you can just hear the scream. I mean, you can hear it. It was like farther down the lake from him. He's like, "What do you make of this?" I'm like, "That's a scream." And then not talking like a woman screaming or a mountain lion screaming. It sounds kind of like the Ohio howl.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
What?
I'll text you the video. But again, you're going to have to listen to it with headphones. You got to, and it's right at the beginning, just like the first 10 seconds.
Was that the night that we were out there, or is it a different night?
No, it's a different night. He just recorded that recently. Wyatt says that's one. That's from one of the other spots. Well, dude, I want to go there. I definitely want to go there. Thank you, Angela. We appreciate that.
I got to build time back up and take another week off. Get back down there.
Well, dude, I'm telling you, there's so much going on around Table Rock Lake. Uh, that's just a prime area, not just because it's close to me, but because there's really so few people around here that are out doing this sort of thing. I mean, Wyatt and Richard go out, but you just don't hear about large groups of cryptid investigators in this area. So these are not only great areas to investigate, but by and large, not many people have done it.
Yeah.
I mean, tons of people have gone to LBL.
Well, that's one of those. I hate to use the term bucket list, but everybody wants to go and check out LBL because it is so famous and people have talked about it so much. It's just one of those places that a lot of people just want to go just so they can tell people, yeah, I went there. But and I think I've heard Spencer say this. There's so many places that. If you really look into the maps, look at the sighting, there are so many places that nobody ever talks about that just are just
Eric says, he said we talked to them after they closed it. They said it would cost too much to run new water lines, sewer, and etc. We offered to buy it, but they won't sell it. What water lines? From what I can tell, it was primitive campgrounds. What water lines would they even need to run? I think the only ones that were was like at the beginning of Joe Bald, where they had the where you could rinse out your RV tank right there at the front, and the rest of them had no water or electricity. So I could be wrong, but from what it looked like to me, a big bay, I don't know that they would need to run water lines. I mean, it's a primitive campsite. Lisa Smith has a good question. She says, "Do you think cryptid wise picked up during COVID since we were in lockdown?" Yeah, that's something Robbie and I talked about quite a bit. And in fact, I'm gonna let Robbie jump on this first because I'll talk for an hour if you get me wound up. But Robbie and I are pretty well in agreement on this one. Go ahead, Robbie.
What we have kind of theorized, speculated on, whatever term you want to put on it, is during the Black Plague of the 21st century, when we were all out, not allowed to go out anywhere, not allowed to do anything. We had to stay locked up in our houses. You've seen these Discovery Channel and all these documentaries about how the world would look if people were out of it for a while. And just think about it. Whatever town you live in, I'm sure you've got abandoned houses, things like that. Think about how long it takes for nature to grow back up and take that house over. It don't take long. So if there's a 3-year period where we're not allowed to go into these areas, everybody's locked up in their houses. And this is not just cryptids. This is this is why DA talks about it all the time. You get mountain lions on ring cameras in the middle of Springfield. These things push back into these areas, and sorry, not sorry, we don't have the type of people that left like we had in Daniel Boone and Davy Crockett and Teddy Roosevelt's days, the frontiersmen that would go in and do what needed to be done to push these things back out of these areas. So all of a sudden, when we're able to go back out, we come back out and we go to these places that it's our happy place. We're going to go out, and they've already pushed back in. It's a recipe for the sightings to go up. And DA and I both talked about it. We've all had conversations on the show and off the show, and it makes sense when you think about it in those terms that, they don't see us for a determinate period of time. They're like, oh, they're gone, and they come pushing back in. Then all of a sudden we show back up. They're not gonna leave and run. They're gonna stay where they're at. And like I said, we don't have the kind of people that's gonna go has the mental fortitude to go push them back out like they did one time before. That's our opinion. I'm not saying it's right.
It does not take nature long to reclaim an area. Look at areas that they've been actively logging. Within 6 months of them pulling out, the area, nature's taken over again. And, there's all kinds of saplings growing up. Animals are coming back into the area. So it does not take nature long at all to move back into an area. And hey, thank you guys. Thank you guys. We had 3 people just sponsor. Oh, Philip
No,
Miller.
Blue Devils at it again.
Blue
I was just
Devil's
giving you a
gifting subs again. Well, thank you, Blue Devil. You are awesome, dude. Thank you so much. And congratulations to everybody that was gifted subs.
I saw Misty got one. I didn't see the other one.
That is awesome. Blue Devil, thank you, man. I really appreciate it. But like I was saying, it doesn't take nature long to move back into an area. And once, especially if you've got a predator like a mountain lion or a bear, once they come back into an area and reclaim hunting grounds, they've got to be pushed out of that area or they're not leaving. They're not going to, especially if they're finding easy pickings in that area, i.e., trash cans or house pets, or even domestic farm animals like chickens and stuff like that. Once they've come into an area where there's easy prey, they've either got to be killed or driven out of the area, and that's just the fact of the matter. That's how predators operate. You're not going to push a predator out of an area where it's making easy kills.
Yeah, and like I said, it takes a certain type of person to do what those frontiersmen did.
Yes, it does.
And that's not a way of life anymore. As much as some of us macho guys would like to think that it is, it's not. The mindset that they had and the things that they did, it's just, we don't have somebody that can do that kind of stuff anymore. I mean, I'm not saying that there's not certain individuals that can do that, but that was pretty much a way of life for just about everybody back then. I mean,
well, in days when you couldn't just pop down to the local grocery store for your groceries, you had to survive. You had to make a living off the land, and if you didn't raise it, you had to hunt it.
Yeah.
Granted, there's still people that do what they call subsistence living, but primarily you're going to find that out in Alaska. You're not going to find it in most of the lower 48 states. I would not be surprised if there's some folks that don't practice subsistence living up in like Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, maybe parts of Colorado. But these are people that are very definitely intending to live off the grid. Which if I had the money, I would do the exact same thing. But it's not nearly as common as it was. Hell, even 50 years ago, there were still people that primarily supplemented their family's winter larder by hunting. I mean, when I was a kid, we did. We had we always had deer and fish. Fish we'd caught, or squirrels, or wild turkey. I mean, if there was a season, we hunted it. And I grew up eating things like rabbit stew and stuff that was just we either shot it or we raised it, and that's pretty much how it worked out. And I kind of missed those days.
I grew up on a farm too. I mean, we had chickens and cows and pigs, and me and my great grandpa was always out in, like you said, whatever season it was. I mean, squirrel dumplings and raccoon. I mean, as funny as it sounds, I've had possum too. I mean, not the best, but yeah,
it'll do in a pinch.
I'm about to say it'll do in a pinch.
If it's starved to death or eat a possum, I'm going to eat a possum, but it's not going to be my first choice.
I've eaten mud turtle.
Folks, I've eaten mud turtle many times. I've eaten snapping turtle. If you are going to eat a possum, I would highly recommend, and I'm not saying you have to do it, but I would highly recommend you catch one and keep it in a pen for about a week, and feed it good food like corn and table scraps. Feed it actual food, because these things will eat almost anything. They're living off garbage and ticks. They eat a lot of ticks. If you feed these things a decent meal for better part of a week till it flushes through their system, then the meat ain't near as gamey. But I don't recommend possum. Things have got to be pretty damn lean before I'm eating a possum.
But like we said, that was a way of life back then. That wasn't, like you said, you couldn't go down to the Piggly Wiggly and grab you a pack of hamburgers, throw on the grill. I mean,
Ron, you're right. It is greasy.
Yeah, it's very, very greasy.
So is bear. Bear is very greasy.
Yeah, not as bad as possum though.
Bear is something that surprised me, though, and I didn't know this until Noah taught me. Noah was a culinary major. He's a trained chef, and he's a certified nutritionist, but I didn't know this about bear. Did you know bear is actually more likely to give you trichinosis than pork? You need to thoroughly cook bear.
Well, I was about to say that bear reminds me a lot of pork. The way the meat
They call a
looks.
male bear a boar and a female a
Yeah,
sow.
yeah. But some of the best wild game I've ever eat though was elk. That's
Elk is, oh, I love elk.
you give
Of
me an
all the
elk steak.
ungulates that I've had, of all the ungulate species I've had, and I've had quite a few, of all of those species, elk is my favorite. Um, Actual white-tailed deer actually ranks kind of low. I love venison, don't get me wrong, but antelope tastes better. Elk is better. Mule deer tastes better than whitetail. Don't know why, just does.
I love whitetail. But elk was just my favorite. Now, tell you, I love me some alligator too.
I've only had alligator a few times, and I
I
like it.
well, like I got relatives that live in Louisiana, so I've had it more than twice. I've had it a few times, and if it's done right, gator meat's good.
Angela Monroe, yeah, caribou is good. I've had that before. Um, um, I was going to say something, and I completely lost my train of thought. Um, oh, yeah, we're talking about what animals taste good, but we're kind of got away from the cryptid aspect. But these animals are
Par for the
another great
course.
example. Another great example when everybody was shut down for COVID. You could, if you went out somewhere to the grocery store or something, you better drive careful because there were deer running around here in the city of Springfield, and this is a good sized town. And it's not like they were just coming out of the fields and right into town. We have bedroom communities all the way around Springfield. So they were coming in through all these little smaller towns and going into the parks and stuff and hanging out here in town. And we still see them fairly regularly. And that's just because they know they're not going to get hunted here.
Yeah, and that's the thing. If we're not out there, it don't take them long. And there, there's our wild game chef just showed up, house in the house.
What's up, House? Speaking of wild game, there's the
Yeah,
wild man himself.
but if they don't have if there's nothing to push back, they're not gonna stay in the woods and just be like, oh, I guess I'm just gonna stay here. They're gonna keep pushing out, keep foraging, keep doing what they're doing. And then all of a sudden, like I said, we show back up and we're allowed to get back outside and we go running back into our safe spaces, our nice camping areas that are out in the wild. Imagine that. There's wildlife in the wild. Who'd have thunk it?
Shocker.
But, that's why I think because if you really look at the last 3 years versus the 3 years before that, yeah, there was an uptick because 3 years before that, there wasn't nobody out there.
Yeah. But there's still a lot of people that hunt in Missouri. And they were actually authorizing, because of the number of deer, they were authorizing select people. They had to get cleared to do limited bow hunts here in town to thin the populations because you couldn't go in a park around here without seeing, a small herd of deer. I mean, it was just become that common. And they're not as common as they were just a couple of years ago, but it's still not abnormal to see raccoons, and which you didn't normally see in the main parts of the city, raccoons and like yesterday there was like 6 squirrels in my front yard. Yeah, I know you get squirrels in town, but I'm seeing them in bigger numbers than I remember seeing. Last summer, Annette and I were in the backyard out here behind the house, and a great big freaking gray owl came down and snatched looked like a field mouse out of the backyard, and that was the first time I'd ever seen an owl in town. But it was really cool. His wingspan was pretty big. But we're seeing a lot of wildlife in places we don't normally see it, and I think we well, to a certain degree we do have COVID to thank for that. But like Robbie was saying, we have a declining population of people that live off of game. And I'm not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I do firmly believe in animal conservation, and hunting is a big part of animal conservation because it helps keep the numbers down. If you don't have natural predators to keep the numbers down, your deer populations will explode. And to me, that's more cruel than hunting a deer, because then you have large groups of deer that are starving to death because they've eaten everything. So animal conservation is something that I firmly believe in. Uh, but we only need to look to the animals to see what could be happening to cryptids. I mean, they rely on these animals much like we did 200 years ago. That is their primary food source. So if they're coming into town, what's to keep a cryptid from following the herds?
And I really think that that's what we're seeing, what's happening, because like look at these big resort towns like places Aspen, Colorado, and all those places like that. They all have those bear-proof dumpsters and things like that because why? They have problems with bears coming down out of the mountains. They have problems with cougars and things like that. So they have to take these measures because it's a part of life. It's just something that they know is going to happen and they know that they're going to have to deal with it. So yeah, it is what it is. They don't think about it. But yet in like where DA lives around Springfield, that's not a common occurrence. So you get a cougar showing up on a Ring doorbell camera. It's like, oh my God, what in the world's going on?
Well, just down the road from us, out near Stockton Lake. I didn't get you out to Stockton. Next trip, I want to get you out there because there've been a lot of sightings out that way too. But out towards Stockton Lake, on the other side of Bolivar, out near Stockton, Missouri, someone posted on Facebook. They had snapped a picture of a black panther right off the road, standing in a field in broad daylight. And yet, the Missouri Department of Conservation is like, "Oh no, we don't have one."
No.
But they got a damn good picture of one, clear as day. It like stopped and looked right at them.
It was swamp gas that refracted off Mars, and the color of Venus that night was causing the but it's this, something like where you live. It's in those cities is not a common occurrence, but when you go to these other places that are like closer to that, it's just it is what it is. It's just
Richard just chimed in. He said that video he sent me was taken around between 6:30 and 6:45 a.m. But yeah, you could hear it clear. I mean,
yeah.
It's an interesting video.
The what I told you about the guy that, was telling me some of the stuff from up here. Some of that stuff he said would happen when he got in, either right after midnight, or if he was coming in like that early in the morning, he was hearing stuff like that around those same time frames. So that's like we've theorized. They're more active at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably why you see and hear a lot of stuff during those times.
Well, we've had here the last week or so, we've had some pretty hot temperatures. I mean, today it was in triple digits. So these things they're not, if they're out there, Bigfoot and Dogman, either one, are completely covered with hair, they're not going to want to be very active during the heat of the day. Where you're going to find them, actively hunting is probably at night or right at dusk or daybreak. Sunrise or sunset. Ron Yelton says they had a wolf running around Ladybird Johnson Park, which borders D.C. There for the longest time, they claimed there were no wolves in Missouri, that they'd been hunted all out, and that's what I'd always thought. But apparently, we've had red wolves for a long time, and now they're starting to see timber wolves here in Missouri.
Well, they just
and Noah was telling me just a week or so ago, there are even reports of grizzly in Missouri, in the northern parts of Missouri, for the first time in over 100 years.
I remember when Noah was talking about that, but they like up in Tennessee around Cades Cove and places like that, where they released all those elk and red wolves and all that stuff. I can't remember where they released them at, but they've started working their way down. So now you've got in Tennessee, now you've got elk and you've got the red wolves and all that stuff. I've actually drove through Cades Cove and watched 2 or 3 red wolves running across the little prairie that they've got up there.
Eric Testerman, who's in the chat, he sent me, images from his trail cameras that he has on his land, and he lives. Well, he doesn't live. He lives along the Niangua River, but not as far down as we were. So we were out into the direction of his place, but we were farther down. We were at Moon Valley, and he lives out that direction, and he has trail cam footage of red wolves on his property, and that's not that far of a drive from where I'm sitting right now.
Well, I mean, you remember the picture I showed you right outside my dad's shop in Pickens, and Rodney will know what I'm talking about. Right below where Travis used to live on Holly Springs School Road. It's a picture of a wolf track that's about that big around, ain't it, DA? Matter of fact, where's my...
Well, that track.
It's a little bit longer than that knife right there. That's how, and that's we don't have.
That is a big wolf.
We don't have wolves like that around here.
Yeah,
what made that?
Well, it was like that canine print we found at Joe Bald. That son of a gun had to be all of 7 inches across. It was bigger than that knife.
Yeah.
It was like not dinner plate, but like saucer sized.
Yeah. I would say that one we found in Joe Ball was every bit as round as that coaster right there, wouldn't you, DA?
Oh yeah, easily.
And obviously longer. Yeah. Rodney, I'm pretty sure you remember where my dad lived off going by where Travis used to live. I found right out beside his shop, I found a wolf print that was bigger or longer than that knife right there. I sent DA. I'll try to, if I can remember, I'll try to send you a picture of it, Rodney, when I get a chance.
Arkansas Hog Hunter says, I just counted 6 black wolves sounding off in my pasture. I see them regularly along with the rest of the group. Well, you just live down in Arkansas. What part of Arkansas do you live in, Arkansas Hog Hunter? Because if I remember correctly, it's not that far from me. A couple hours drive. Roxanne says, DA, I was told more mountain lions have been sighted live and on game cams in around Wablo, Missouri. There was a mountain lion caught on a street cam in Lebanon, Missouri, like last year. And earlier this year, they had a black bear walking down Main Street. I think they tranquilized it and took it someplace and released it. But, it's happening. And Lebanon's not a small town. Well, technically it is. It's about 14,000 people. But that's not a small, like where I worked when I worked for Walnut Grove. That was a town of 600 people. Seeing a bear walk down the streets of Walnut Grove would not have shocked me because it's surrounded by woods. But Lebanon's a good-sized town.
You want to answer Kay's question, or do you want me to?
Go ahead.
I asked Ken Gerhardt last time I was talking to him. I asked him, I said, what's the biggest wolf track you found out in the wild? And he said, 4 inches?
Yeah.
I think right at 4 inches long. And I showed him that picture. And Ken's exact reaction was, holy shit. So,
it's a big wolf track.
Yeah.
Well, the wolf print we found at Joe Bald, because of the hard pack of the soil, that thing probably, when we only found just that one, we didn't find a whole trackway. So we can't say whether it was bipedal or otherwise, but we did get that one really good track. But the depth of it, that thing had to weigh, I don't know, 250, 300 pounds?
Probably more, I would say. It's hard packed. I would say you probably, just a guesstimate, but I would say over 500 pounds, just how deep that was and how dry that ground was. To even make an impression, it had to be over 500 at least.
It was definitely heavy.
We think about it. I'm 260 pounds, and I was pushing down and couldn't make even close to an impression. So I'm close to 300 pounds and was not even remotely making an impact in the ground. So, but
Arkansas Hog Hunter says he's a few miles south of Blue Eye. So yeah, he's not far from me at all. In fact, When we were in Combs Ferry, we were right there in his neck of the woods because Combs Ferry is pretty close to Blue Eye.
So, but circling back to Kay's question, if I had to, and I'm no biologist or anything like that. I'm just, sheer speculation based on the tracking knowledge I have. If I had to make a guess, and I think he said to the shoulder, I'd say you're probably looking at least 3.5 to 4 foot from ground to the top of his shoulders. To have that big of a print and impression in the ground, that's a big animal. That's not small.
Well, considering where you found it was in that blind, that there's no wolf in the world made a hunting blind.
No,
that took hands.
Well, and just there again, not a small guy. I know a lot of y'all were talking about DA. I was on an incline. DA was standing uphill from me. That's why I'm not a small guy. I'm not huge, but I'm not small either. And DA and Noah both can tell you that there was plenty of room around me inside that.
Yeah, he did not fill it.
Yeah.
It was built for something much bigger than Robbie.
And on a good day, I'm probably closer to 275 if I'm being honest. But a lot of times it's 260-ish. But I'm not small, and I had plenty of room in there. I could have stretched out and took a nap if I wanted to. It was for something a lot bigger.
It wasn't an old track. The edges of the track were still too well defined. If that had been older than a few days, it would have already started to erode. That track was still crisp.
Yeah, and there was still around the edges of the track, dirt was still flaking off. There was no dryness of the dirt. It was fresh. It was probably the night before, which exactly the area.
There, that was the exact area, man.
Exact area that we saw the eye shine the night before. And Noah and I tracked all the way back around, found that little draw, followed it back around, and when we followed that draw back around, there it was right there next to that game trail, which coincidentally enough, and I say we as in they were following me, I was headed towards that game trail.
Even though that was in the fall and most of the leaves were off the ground, when you crouched down in that blind, and I knew right where you were. I didn't get very far away before I couldn't see you at all, and I knew right where you were at.
Well, when you were sitting over there waiting on me and Noah, we were doing that, and me and Noah were talking, and we were working that out, and we were because you came to the conclusion when we started telling and showing you stuff, but Noah and I had already talked about this, and I think me and him had already kind of sort of started working this out, and I was like, I looked, I said, glad you stopped me from going down here last night, because
yeah, no kidding.
It was waiting.
In fact, that was the night we designated Noah the official Robbie Wrangler.
Yep, that would be the night.
Hey, well, let's take a quick minute and hear a word from Doc. It'll give me a chance to grab something. So, going to hear a quick word from Doc and about Dark Angel Medical.
Hey everybody, this is Kerry Pocket Doc Davis from Dark Angel Medical, and you are listening to DA Ex Machina with DA Roberts. You may recognize me or some of my products from Dark Angel Medical in some of the Apex Predator, Lakeview Man, and Wild Hunt books, and you can get those products at www.darkangelmedical.com, along with training classes on how to use those products and save a life. Shoot us an email at info@darkangelmedical.com and be the difference.
And don't forget, if you go by darkangelmedical.com, pick you out a good kit. I would definitely want a good kit if you're going to be out in the woods for any reason. Don't forget to use discount code CRYPTID20 for 20% off your entire order. And make sure you let them know that we sent you, and wish Kerry a happy birthday, because his birthday's coming up in just a few days.
Yep. You watching this, Doc? Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Doc.
We love you. But, yeah, it's kind of one of them moments when you start working stuff out like that in your head, and you're like,
yeah.
Something will make a snack out of me.
You know, when you look at some of the more famous Dogman encounter stories, um, I think about Palmyra, Maine a lot. Not only because of what happened, but the level of detail to me really gives that a lot of credibility. The detail has not changed, no matter how many times the story's been retold. Um, and it's just one of those stories that I find truly compelling. I don't know if you guys are very familiar with Palmyra. It's a pretty famous incident. I'm not going to retell the entire story, but I'll kind of hit the recap button for those of you who may not know much about it. But there was it was a family, and I believe they were from New York or Boston. They were from a big city, and the husband had become medically retired. He had an injury and had to retire from work, so they bought a place in the country. And what they did is they bought a farm outside of Palmyra, Maine. And the wife was not fond of the husband having guns. Um, and this is a morality story for any of you guys that keep firearms. The wife was not a fan of him having firearms because apparently he was a hunter. So she insisted that he build a lockable room in the barn to keep all his guns. So he did to make his wife happy. Well, wasn't long after that they noticed that what looked like somebody walking in their woods with flashlights, and they assumed it was just somebody either out there hunting or trespassing. So they walked out that way and yelled at him, "Hey, this is private property. You guys need to move on." The lights went out and they lost it. So they go back out there later and find this great big mound, mostly brush, uh, and pushed over trees and stuff like that, and rocks and stuff. But it was this huge mound, and it looked like it had tunnels going back inside it, like a big den or a warren. Um, and that's when things started getting weird. They started noticing what looked like a pack of wolves coming into the field and like standing and staring at the house. And that's when they realized these wolves were not behaving like normal wolves. These wolves were on 2 feet. Um, and then one night they got bold and started coming to the house. And that's when they realized the mistake of locking the firearms in the barn. The husband was going to try to get to the guns, and as soon as he started to head out of the porch light, they started coming toward him, and he had to retreat quickly back to the house. And then he got the idea of trying to get to his truck, and the same thing happened. When he left the light, they rushed him, and so they called the police, and the police sent somebody out there, and the things, of course, disappeared. But it got to be such a common occurrence, the police wouldn't come out anymore. And to me, that just seems weird. If somebody was reporting that they've got something or someone going after their house, when I did rural policing, I would have gone. Um, I would have gone to check it out, if nothing else, just to make sure there's nothing to it. And I don't care if they're reporting Wolfman or whatever. You might think it's BS that they're reporting bipedal wolves in their field, but how do you know it's not a group of people dressed that way just to harass them? So you've got to take these stories seriously, even if you think that they're pulling your leg. Um, but it got dangerous enough. These things tried to get in the house with them, and I don't know if the family ended up moving or not. I can't remember how the story goes, but it became
Yeah,
it
I think they
they decided to hell with this, sold the land. I don't blame them, but love my wife dearly, but she never would have convinced me to put my guns in the barn. Of course, she wouldn't have tried. She's a farm girl too. She grew up around firearms, so she's not freaked out by them. But there's no way I would have locked those. So that's why you have them, and to get trapped away from them by these creatures, to me is a what do you call that? Like Aesop's fables. That's a that's a learning story. Well, like the Norse used to say, never move more than a step from your weapon. And whether you support firearms or the Second Amendment, whether you're into any of that or not, that's the reason we have those. Is we have them not only to provide for our family in the case we need to hunt, but to defend our family. And that doesn't necessarily mean against just armed intruders. That could be anything. And there are plenty of things out in the animal community, in animal kingdom, that can and will eat you. That's Maine. Maine is one of the most heavily forested states in the United States. I think it's like second only to like Wyoming or something like that, or well, no, might be Washington. I can't remember. I was just looking at it here recently, but Maine is heavily forested, and they've got moose up there. They've got grizzly. They've got all kinds of stuff up there that can and will eat people, and without throwing Dogman into the mix. So, and that story just kind of sticks with me as a cautionary tale. Um, I don't know how I would have felt in that situation. You can't ever really say how you would react until you've been in that situation. But I definitely would have been. You've been trying to defend my family, and I know that's what the husband tried to do. But there's no chance I'm building a locker in my barn for my guns. They're staying right here in the house.
Yeah, there's absolutely, positively no way, no shape, no fashion, no form that I would have ever in any life on any other alternate universe or whatever you want to say would have ever agreed to house my weapons or even part of my weapons in a separate building from where I'm sleeping and spending most of my time.
Yeah, I don't even check my mail without having a gun on. I mean, I worked better part of 20 years all told in and around this county, and I've put in that time I've put handcuffs on a lot of people, uh, and that just kind of goes hand in hand with the job. And Annette and I can't go out to eat or go to Walmart without me seeing a couple people I've put in handcuffs. So yes, I pretty much go everywhere armed. Now, granted, a lot of those guys probably don't recognize me with the beard because I went back then. The sheriff's department I worked for wasn't allowed to have beards. Um, but if they ever figured it out, I might still have trouble from some of those guys because some of those guys went to prison.
Yeah, I mean, I get that there's some out there who are not in that. Oh, I've got a lot of guns, but they're they're scary to my wife, or maybe the other way around. The woman's got the guns and they're scary to her spouse. There's no way. I'm like Rodney. If I'm dressed, I'm armed.
Yeah, same here.
It is what it is. I mean, especially in today's day and time. I mean,
No kidding. Greg says I've got 3 handguns within arm's reach right now. Dude, I got 4 on my desk, literally right in front of me. I got 3 Glocks and a 1911 just all right here. And behind the screen, I've got my black powder, my Griswold, and then everything else is in the gun cabinet just behind this monitor on my left. Yeah, I've got a small arsenal within quick grab of right where I'm sitting.
Yeah, when I came down there, and me, DA, and Noah took off the first night we was down there, we were probably the second largest standing army in Missouri.
Yeah, we were pretty well armed that night. And Missouri's a constitutional carry state, so if you're not a felon and you're over 18, you can carry concealed in Missouri without any issues at all.
But that's, to me, and that was the one I was talking about when Spencer asked us that to me, that's one of the scare, and it's made that way because I feel like they put themselves in that situation. I just, that blows my mind. That
and I reiterate that I have no intention of being the guy that hunts one of these things down, but I'll be damned if I let one run me off my property.
right.
It's not happening. I will fight like the devil himself if they think they're going to run. It'll turn into the freaking Seizure Lockett Ranch if they think they're running me off my property.
Well, and I mean, Lakeview Man was based not based on that, but that was that principle at the end of Lakeview, man, was, you know, Clark wasn't going to be run off his own property.
Nope.
And there's a lot of movies where things like that happen. You could look at the reverse of that in Dog Soldiers, is the werewolves weren't going to leave their property. And the soldiers were not going to go back out, you know. So that's something that a lot of people can identify with. That, you know, it's this is my home. I mean, I'm not going to be run out of my home. But you can't defend your home if your home is here and your guns are over there. It's just,
right.
I don't see how you can logically look at that and say, okay, yeah, that's a compromise. We'll put them in the barn. I mean, okay, this guy was a hunter. Obviously, he was not a believer of cryptids. Because they you know, they thought they were regular wolves. But he's a believer in the news, I'm sure. He sees the stuff that happens that the humans do. So you live out in the middle of nowhere, the chances of you getting broke into and getting stuff stolen, you know, increase because there's not nobody watching a lot of times. Those houses like that are out of the way are what, you know, criminals tend to pick. How are you going to protect yourself from the human dangers if your guns are out there?
And
Number one. Number two, you've just
had a large number of home invasions in the last 10 years. So yeah, I'm keeping one handy.
But something we hadn't even talked about. Basically, you're arming the bad guys, because if you're in your house and the bad guys pull up and they go check the barn first, guess what? Now they've got all your guns.
Yeah.
Yes, Kay, I remember that movie very well.
Good movie.
Yep.
Ed, thank you for popping in. He says he can't stay long. Appreciate you popping in, man.
See you, Ed.
Ammo Dad says, kind of like New York State wanting everything in a safe separated from ammo and magazines. Dude, every gun in my house is loaded. Ain't much use for an unloaded gun.
If all my guns are loaded too, but if I hit somebody with the ammo box full of spare ammo, I'd crush their head. Because my ammo can that's got all my spare ammo in it probably weighs 50 pounds. Just to give you an idea how much spare ammo I got. And that's just one of them.
That's always a good thing to have around too. You know, the other night we were talking about the report I got from a deputy in a county that I won't name that had his patrol car window busted out, and the deer that he was there to check out was gone. Was exchanging texts with said individual, and I asked him if he thought it was a Bigfoot or a Dogman. He said, well, what's the difference? So I kind of basically explained the difference. He said, honestly, I couldn't tell you. I never saw it. He said, but I definitely felt like if I'd have gone looking for it, I might not have come back. So it kind of leads me to think it's probably more Dogman.
Yeah, but and that would be kind of a new thing if it was, because we know that obviously that sometimes they've been seen multiple in an occasion, but short of what I felt like happened to me and my group at LBL, I don't know a whole lot of times when they've done coordinated things like that. I mean, what we just talked about Palmyra, it wasn't like one was over here getting the attention while another one was doing this. It was just they were all coming at them.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would, you know, if they're, you know, like the cynocephali, the dog-headed men. I mean, what the Greeks and Romans both talked about. These things were using tactics.
Yeah,
so
well, that's what I'm saying. It plays into that.
We give them credit.
It plays into that, but it's good to hear something like that, because that just strengthens the things that we've read from history.
Sorry, shoulder giving me a little twinge of pain. Um, but you know, when we look at some of these more dangerous encounter stories, like for example in LBL, when that family was supposedly killed, um, there's signs in LBL that you're not supposed to have, long guns. There are certain times of the year where you can hunt there, but you know, I would rather be fined for having one in my camper than be caught without one. Uh, that's why next time I go back to LBL, I'm carrying a handgun. I didn't last time because I'd heard, oh, you'll get in lots of trouble if you get caught with a firearm. Find me. I've still got my credentials, so it's not like I can't carry.
Yeah, and I sat down and had a long talk with Chief before I went, and that's when he explained to me about the cards that he got us to carry. That's got that. You remember what I showed you? That it's got on there where it cites that federal statute that we're allowed to carry in places like that. So he sat me.
Leosa laws.
Yeah, he sat me down and explained it to me. He says, if anybody comes up to you, this is how you respond to that. Then you show them this, and if they still want to argue with you about it, he said, you give them my phone number, and I'll be glad to explain to them.
One time when Annette and I were up in, we went over to the Cahokia Mounds in Illinois, and I was still an active deputy at the time, and I had my handgun on. But our department always insisted that if you had your handgun on, you had your badge clipped to your belt right next to it. And we were eating at a restaurant in Cahokia, and I went to the bathroom, and a Illinois State Highway patrolman, happened to see my handgun while I was going to the bathroom. And he goes, "Are you a cop?" And he's looking at me real odd. And I said, "Yes, sir." And I raised up my shirt so he could see the badge. He goes, "Where are you from?" I said, "Missouri." He goes, "Well, if I had my way, I wouldn't allow any of you out-of-state cops to carry in my state." And I just looked at him. I said, "Well, fortunately, the federal Leosa laws say I don't have to give a fuck what you think."
Why would you even say that to another cop? That's just...
And considering the proximity of Cahokia, Illinois to East St. Louis, you bet your ass I'm carrying.
But
Richard says, Wyatt and I had a huge rock thrown at us one night. It splashed just right behind us. And as we were sitting in the boat, it's the same place that video was sent. I want to go there, dude. I really do. Michelle Richardson says, in the Bible, Nebuchadnezzar was turned into a beast. It could have been a dogman or a Bigfoot. It's entirely possible. I mean, we're not just talking biblical references. There are lots of references to dogman and Bigfoot throughout history. In fact, even on the Pie-Rice map, which is a map of Antarctica without ice on it, there are Bigfoot and dogman creatures drawn in the margins of the map. So, we're talking something that predates modern Christianity. I mean, that map is old. I'm not saying it predates religion. I'm just saying it predates what we consider Christianity today. So tales of these things go back thousands of years. Well, Greg, I'm glad to know that. He said federal law restricting carry in federal forest got overturned by the Supreme Court. The Park Service never took down the signs. They were butthurt.
What Rodney was talking about, HR 218, that's what and it's the ID cards that Chief got us. It's spelled out on there that,
I've got a Leosa badge that I bought. It's just a badge that says, federally protected Leosa carrier, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
it cites the reference.
Mm-hmm.
When I was in South Carolina on vacation, we went to a little grocery store just down from where we were staying to get some stuff to cook there at our room, and because it had a little kitchenette and stuff. So we were going to save money by not eating out. But I ran into a North Myrtle Beach officer while I was in that store. He was working off duty as security in the store. And I walked up to him and said, "Can I ask you a question?" He said, "Sure." And I said, "I'm just going to get my wallet." He said, "Okay." And he kind of looked at me funny and took my wallet out, and I showed him my credentials. I said, "I'm an out-of-state cop. I'm here on vacation. What's y'all's policy on me carrying a firearm? Because that was my first time in South Carolina. And he goes, well, you're going to find, he said, that the folks around here are very supportive of their law enforcement. He said, and I encourage you to carry everywhere because, the crime is this is a resort town and crime follows. He said, so just be careful. And if you have any questions, refer them to our department. But, we fully recognize and support the Leosa carry laws. So you're 100% fine.
Yep. And we've recently gone to open carry.
They dated the Pie Rice map to 1513 to Admiral Pie Rice, but they believe the map was actually a copy of a much older map. They don't know the true origins of the Pie Rice map because they've only ever seen part of it. Even the portion that's on display in the museum in Turkey is only a small portion of the map. I've got a copy, large scale copy of the portion that they have, and it's certainly not all of Antarctica. But it's a lot of it, and it's impressive that it's Antarctica without ice, and that had to have been thousands of years ago, considering how much ice is on Antarctica now. K Bauer says, "Da, do you recall a video of a dog barking at a large animal? It eventually got up and gave chase. It looked like a very large dog. Yeah, I did see that, and if that wasn't a Dogman on all fours, that was a 400-pound freaking wolf. That dog was a good sized dog, probably 120-pound dog, and that thing dwarfed that dog.
Well, Rodney sent me that video that Thinker Thunker did, and I sent it to you about, was it like 3 or 4 dogmen supposedly out running around that they did the video of? That was some pretty compelling. Make you think.
I've seen some really good videos, and I've seen some really bad videos. But the real problem is, and I know Ryan Tremblay's in the audience tonight. Kind of wished he was popped in with us, but Ryan can back me up on this. Is the overabundance of AI art that is now starting to flood the cryptid world. It's becoming extremely difficult to accept any video or photo evidence at face value. And I was already very, very, very suspect of anything that was just looked like a blurry picture with 7 or 8 red circles on it. And again, I'm going to reiterate, we refer to that as bullshitography. You can throw as many red circles on it you want. It doesn't mean there's a Bigfoot in that picture. But there are always going to be, 25 people that swear up, right, left, down, and sideways that they see, 17 Bigfoot, a Dogman, and the man in the moon in that picture, and there's nothing in it. I would be willing to bet I could take my digital camera out into my backyard to the fence at the back of my property, which butts up against the neighbor's property straight behind me. There's no alley. There's nothing like that. And the fence is just a regular size, like 4.5 foot fence, but it's covered with a honeysuckle bush, and it's thick enough that if you crouch down, you can't see the neighbor's house. I bet I could take a picture of that bush, knowing damn good and well what is directly on the other side is a shed and a house, and post it under a different name in one of these groups with a few red circles on it, and there'll be 25 people swearing up and down they see Bigfoot in it. And to me, that does more harm than good to the field. Richard, you have a good night, man. Thank you. And I definitely want to get out with you guys. I cannot wait. Swope is correct, but that's the thing is there's so much of evidence of people, incidents of people claiming AI or putting AI forth. It makes it hard to accept ones that we know ones that are legit photos. It casts a doubt on even the ones that are credible. And I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying that's the way it is. When you start flooding the cryptid community with hoaxes, it makes everything look like a hoax. And I think a lot of that is intentional.
Yep.
What about you, Robbie?
Oh, 100% do. Because we've talked about that before. You know how we think that there are certain people in there that are there's a, for all you wrestling fans out there, you probably heard the term plant. Ric Flair used to have plants all the time when he come to Greenville to wrestle at the old brown box. Old woman that would get up and cuss and scream in his face, or the people that they would get into it with the crowd. They were there specifically to help the heels get heat. Me and DA believe that there are people in this community that are in this community for no reason other than to, make us look crazy, make us look stupid, try to pass off the most outrageous and obnoxious stuff and get them that you could ever think of to discredit this entire field. And yeah, like just muddy the waters. I mean, you're right, Greg. I mean, and if you think stuff like that don't happen, you're probably living under a rock, because it happens in every facet of our life in this society. Stuff like that happens.
Yeah. Whether they want to call it disinformation or whatever label they want to put at it and put on it. Anytime people start claiming this is false, false facts, or this is false information, that's when I really want to look at it and decide for myself. I'm not going to let anybody spoon feed me and say this is truth and this is not. You need to be
Swope got it. PsyOps. That's exactly what it is.
Right. You need to be able to form your own opinion on things. And if you look at a photo and it's got 2 or 3 red circles on it and you think you see a Bigfoot in it, more power to you. It's kind of like those things they had in the 80s where you had to like squint your eyes and like let them go out of focus to see the picture. I could never see. I could never see those. So maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm the one that can't see the Bigfoot in the picture. But to me, pareidolia is a thing. It is legit, and it's just like when you're a kid laying in a field. I don't know if some of y'all that grew up in the city ever did this, but we used to lay out in the field and look at clouds, and we'd say, "Oh, that one looks like a guy on a horse," or "That one looks like a bird." It's pareidolia. That cloud is not a bird. That cloud is not a guy riding a horse. That's just a cloud. And our minds look for patterns. And that's just how we're conditioned, how the human brain works. But just because you think there's a Bigfoot in that picture doesn't necessarily mean there is.
And house hits nail on the head with muddy in the waters. That's exactly what it's misinformation. It's like I said, if you don't think that's a real thing, ask all them people in Iraq that were getting them pamphlets littered from helicopters on their heads from the United States military on a daily basis. The misinformation, and obviously it really wasn't misinformation at that point, but to them it was misinformation because it was going against what they were raised to believe. But that kind of stuff happens all the time. And if you think our government's above trying to send some people into the cryptid community to disrupt it, man, I got some property for you.
Exactly.
It's in Arizona, and you can see the beach.
He says, "What's sad is there are people that have had what I believe had an actual encounter, then to stay in the spotlight, I believe fabricate things. Once they fabricate anything, you can't trust them." Exactly. And folks, again, there are no experts in this field. And I can think of one example of a person that claims to be an expert, and I find that I believe very little of what they have to say. You cannot just trust that this person or that person is an expert. I'm not an expert. Robbie doesn't claim to be an expert. And I will tell you what you're listening to when we're talking about is just our theories. We could be wrong. anything y'all think, I think anything y'all can think of based on your own reading and your own observations, those theories are just as valid as anything we come up with. Granted, we might spend a little more time out in the woods or chasing down stories than some folks, but then again, there are folks out there, like Greg, who practically lives among them, have done that do more time than we do.
Well, they
And
think
I,
he's
and I
one
don't,
of them. I mean,
yeah, yeah, well, he looks like it. He's got the
Yeah.
beard for it. He's the wild man of the county there.
Love you, Greg.
Roxanne, we did one of the ads. We'll do another one here in a minute. In fact, since Greg says I'm no expert, I'm a redneck that's had many encounters. Exactly. Robbie, why don't you tell us a little bit about Scalawag Tactical?
Slightly. Excuse me while I whip this out.
Got a new one.
Yep, you showed me that. So the picture, that's when you said you're going to try to make it into a boot dagger. Now, that's one of the ones that come from the new merger, correct?
Yeah.
So that's not
the new ones that show up.
Yeah, that's not a Scallywag creation. That is a Scallywag acquisition.
Yeah, but it's a nice knife.
Yep, that has now become my uniform.
Daily carry.
In my uniform. I carry that on my uniform every day. I love that knife, and I got to do it because Kevin said he's going to come over here and steal it from me while I'm gone one day because that's the one he wants. And I'm like, no, you're not. So it goes with me every day in my pocket. The Scallywag, and this is the Dugan. This is the little push dagger. As you can see, and DA's holding up his arsenal. He's got more knives than Craig himself, I think. They make some of the best blades that you're going to find. They're veteran owned. They're going to take care of you. They're going to give you a good quality blade that you're going to be very, very happy with and very, very satisfied with. These are not knives that you're going to want to send back. These are knives that you're going to, the whole time that I've been in here that we've been talking, I've had my dew claw in my hand. There's that good of a knife that you just want them in your hand all the time. And as Doc and I are fond of saying, they'll cut you 3 ways: long, deep, and continuous. So you better have yourself a good Dark Angel medical kit to go along with it. I believe that one's got something on the other side of it, don't it, DA?
This one? No, this one doesn't.
I thought that wasn't that one I did for you. I thought
no, that's
I did that one for Miss Roxanne. I'm sorry. That was
my gunner's mate.
Or Miss Karen. I'm sorry.
On my desk.
Yeah, I did that. I've engraved so many of them for you and for her. I lose track of who I did what for. So I did that one for Miss Karen. But anyway, go check them out at Scallywag Tactical. Use code DA Roberts 10 at checkout. Get yourself an extra 10% off, and that does stack on top of any deals you get at the Blemish Blade section. They have merged with Gray's Customs. Did I get it right this time? Or Gray's Tactical?
Gray's Customs.
Gray's Customs. They merged with Gray's Customs, so there's a lot bigger selection, and there's some pretty cool looking knives that they've acquired in that merger. So go check them out. Tell them we sent you. Scallywag Tactical, code DA Roberts 10 at checkout.
Gary Lee. Yeah, I'm good. I'm good.
Greg, I hadn't cut myself since the freaking Florida conference a year and a half ago. Jeez.
Jeff Yarrington says he carries the Jolly Roger every day. That's a damn good knife. I've either got a Jolly Roger on me or the titanium razor.
And yes, House, this is the last one that cut me. Thank you very much. I know how to handle my blades. I just dropped it and tried to catch it like an idiot.
David, you're not wrong. I have quite a few scallywag blades I've been collecting, slowly over time. I really like them.
I'm starting to get a good size collection of them.
Well, next time I talk to Craig, I'm going to see if I can get us a few of the newer ones. Someone was saying they just got another Scallywag T-shirt. I've got one Scallywag T-shirt, and I've got
Scally Swag shirt.
Yeah, I want to get a couple of the other ones. Some of those new ones are really nice. But I tell you what, I'm really proud of that I bought from Scallywag was one of the coffee presses. Oh my God, that thing makes a damn good cup of coffee. I bought the base camp model. It makes 32 ounces of coffee at a time, and I'm telling you that's probably the best cup of coffee I've ever made. And you start with a good brand of coffee, and oh wow, it makes a really damn good cup of coffee.
And I meant to say something about it earlier. I saw somebody talking about the thing in October. Yes, DA and I are both going to be at the what's that? The Spirit of the Forest Festival. I think is what it's called.
I can never remember what it's called, but the one in Ohio, yeah,
In Greenville, Ohio. Yes, DA and I both will be there in October. October
we need to
11th and
start
12th.
really plugging that. Let me see if I can find it. Find the link.
And I meant to say when I saw it rolling, but we were in the middle of talking, and then we got on the having to do the affiliate. And so, thank you for whoever mentioned that and reminded me. Sometimes this chat just rolls by so fast; it's hard to catch everything.
I'm going to post this in the chat. If you guys are anywhere within driving distance of Greenville, Ohio, check this out. Robbie and I will both be speaking there. Well, I'm speaking. Robbie's putting on a class, but Robbie and I are both going to be working on a couple classes together. Probably going to drag Robbie's ass up on stage with me when I talk. But it's going to be a pretty good time. And I think it's overall. I think it's all 3 days, isn't it? Over the full length of it.
Yeah, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I think. I don't know for sure if we're doing anything on Sunday, but I know that Friday and Saturday.
Well, the vendors don't close out until like 9 p.m. on Sunday.
Okay, then yeah, Sunday too.
I think it's all day Sunday as well. They said there'll be lots of food trucks and share your Bigfoot or paranormal experiences around a bonfire at night at 7 p.m.
Miss Naoma's going to be there.
Bonfire. Miss Naoma's going to be there.
She's going to be telling stories around the bonfire.
Imagine they'll probably get me and Robbie in on that as well. But definitely check that out. And if you, like I said, if you're going to be anywhere near Greenville, Ohio, on that weekend in October, it's going to be a good time. Was it 2 weeks before that is going to be the Woodwalkers meet and greet?
Yeah. Okay, Prospect. You thought we were? No, we were already. Before that one got put into effect, DA and I were already obligated to this one, and that's like the weekend before that.
So I can't say for sure I'm going to make the meet and greet, but I'm going to try.
Well,
and maybe out of my price range to make 2 in 1 month.
Yeah, I can't. I would love to, but I got bills and I got a job that I got to work, so I can't afford to take 2 back to back like that. So, and I was already obligated to this one, so sorry. I'd love to come to it.
I would too. I'm gonna try. I can't guarantee I'm gonna make it, but I am gonna do my best because I really regret missing the last one.
But yes, we're definitely gonna be at the one in Greenville, Ohio, though.
Oh yeah. Clarko says, when's the next time y'all will be at LBL? I don't know. I'm wanting to get back to LBL. Maybe spring. Maybe in the spring I can get back to LBL. If things pan out the way I'm hoping they pan out, maybe we can organize an expedition and, maybe do more than just, go out there and walk around for a bit. May do like they did with the meet and greet and plan a camping outing and that kind of thing. But that's going to be kind of contingent on a couple of things, going my way, because things have not been going my way here the last month or so. Thing has not been a good time, and not all of it's that. Of all the more infamous Dogman stories, what's your favorite, Robbie?
Honestly, the one we talked about at Palmyra, that just strikes a primal chord with me. But as far as like what's got the most significance and what I think is probably the one that really brings everybody in is probably the one at LBL from the early 80s. And going and being in that general area and talking to people who know the area and know that, because you and I both, not at the same time obviously, but we both have been within 100 to 200 yards of that,
Of the kill site.
yeah. And and I've talked to Greg about it too. I mean, that's just one of those places that, and we kind of talked a little bit about this before we went on the air. It's just one of those places that if you're in this field and you've got a passion for this, that's one of the places that, you hear about it and you hear all these stories, and it's just one of those places everybody feels like they want to at least try to go to at least one time before, and it doesn't disappoint. It's straight up spooky in places. And I know I sound like a broken record saying it, but when Johnny and I were standing in Demumbers Bay and walking around those woods, 11 o'clock in the morning, and I told him, I said, dude, I feel like we're in a horror movie. I said, if Jason Voorhees stepped out from behind one of these trees, I would not be surprised, because that's just it's the feeling you get in that place. It's just
Demumbers Bay feels like you're on, even though you can look across the lake and see houses, it feels almost like you're on another planet.
Yeah,
because it's just so disconnected from everything else.
And he was like, dude, there's no waterfowl, there's no ducks, there's no geese. We could hear crows way off in the distance. I mean, not close, way, way off. But it was nothing. There was like one little chittering bird, and I say literally it was one, because there was nothing else. There was no other sound. And you could hear that one bird, and you could literally tell it's one bird. There's no insect sounds. We didn't see any armadillos. We didn't see any possums. We didn't see any squirrels. Nothing. It was just like, what that first time we were in Joe Bald, but in the middle of the day. It was just
one thing I noticed about the north end of LBL too, is right across the canal where we stayed in Grand Rivers, there were deer and possums and all kinds of stuff wandering around, but I never saw any of that in the north end of LBL. I didn't even see roadkill.
Well, you saw all the big fish skeletons that we found. Some of them up in the woods, and some of them all over the bank. But the thing that got me was, and I've asked you this question: what's the biggest deer herd that you've seen together? And you said what, 6, 7?
We were around hunting seasons, and you might see them, get a little bigger than that, but not many.
We saw like 20 plus in some of these groups.
House in the house.
House in the house. Come on, Big Red, get on here.
What's up, man?
Let me get. Oh man, not a whole lot, just inflation right now.
What's up, brother, man?
How you doing?
Man, just living the dream right now. Man, I had to get on my dadgum phone, my computer. it wouldn't join up. I don't know what was going on.
Weird.
Yeah, but I made it.
Got a little
Barely.
distortion in the sound, but not real bad.
Oh, let me see what I can get to happen here. See if I can get to where I can get the big screen. It's like I'm looking at I don't know what, just a tiny screen here. I guess it'll stay that way. So, y'all been living the dream?
Always.
Yeah, just doing. You know what is that line from Gladiator? It says, sometimes I do what I want to do. Most of the time, I do what I have to do.
There you go. Yes. So your recovery's doing pretty good, huh?
Doing pretty good. Yeah, there's still a pretty good lump right there, but the incision looks a hell of a lot better than it did.
Wow. So, man, like if you get, like if a dog man goes to bite you, can you like thrust that shoulder in his mouth so when he chomps down, like tase him or what?
I hope so. That would be awesome. But I want to avoid tasers, and they've already given me a little medical card to tell me to avoid airport metal detectors
Oh, wow.
and microwaves.
Well, how will that affect you? Will you be done now as far as having like a MRI or anything?
They said that it's still possible to do an MRI, but they've got to take some extra steps.
Oh, wow.
Last thing I want is this thing to go foom out of my
Yeah.
chest and up to the MRI.
Yeah. Why did DA's chest explode? I'm not sure.
He was an alien.
Oh.
He really was.
Yes. So you may actually get to come to a meet and greet, and Robbie said he's out, right?
I honestly, there's no way I can afford 2 weekends in a row like that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's what people don't realize. Sometimes going on a trip, when you're going a few hundred miles, I mean, you can blow a lot of money, but, you know.
And hard to do.
Yeah. But, hey, I figure we'll have a pretty good turnout. We're going to have some pretty interesting people come, some pretty big names in the Bigfoot research field. We'll have, I know Coonbo's coming. I can let that out of the bag. Yeah. He, matter of fact, Coonbo called me this evening. He's scheduled to be here tomorrow night. He's going to be here using my internet again, and he's going to do a show with Mark Newble tomorrow night on Sawdust Beast. They're going to, yeah, I'm not sure exactly. They did a show a few weeks ago and kind of done a part one on it, talking about, I think it was talking about kind of like the Nephilim side of Bigfoot, you know, the belief on it. So I think tomorrow night's probably going to be a continuation of that, but that'll kick off tomorrow at 8 Central.
Sounds good. I'll have to make sure I check that out.
We gotta get you and Robbie both down here. I done been talking to Coonbo about that. We gotta get y'all down here and go boogering with us. And I'll show you around. I'm gonna show y'all around here, and we'll hit several spots in North Alabama and do some boogering, and carry y'all to the infamous Baker Farms. We'll carry you up there.
Sounds good.
Yep.
I would definitely love to hit those places.
Yeah. So, man, it's been all pretty quiet here. I had something bang my propane tank the other night about 1:30, about 1:35 in the morning. It rung a 500-gallon propane tank like a church bell hit with a sledgehammer.
Dang.
And yeah, I was actually doing a live chat with River Morris that lives in Australia. Jeff Yarrington that was in chat. Jeff had passed out, went to sleep. He was snoring on us. And then David Blaylock in Oregon. But River was.
You were talking about that on y'all show the other day, wasn't you?
Yes, man. Yeah.
Did you say it woke Jeff up? He could hear it over the phone.
It almost woke him up. He snored a little louder, but River was honestly, he was talking, and me and David listening to him, and when it made that noise, I mean, I had my phone just like this. I was sitting in this other recliner, and River was talking, and it was loud enough from outside into my man cave, my cabin here, that River stopped talking and was like, "Brother, what was that?" And I was like, "Man, something just hit my propane tank." That's the only thing out there that would ring like a church bell, big metal object. And y'all, the next day I looked all around it, and there was nothing. There was no tree limb, no log, no nothing that could have fell on it. I mean, there's no way I couldn't go out there with steel-toed boots and kick that tank and make that sound. I mean, it absolutely rang like a church bell. Whatever hit it that hard.
Whew.
So, you had any more on the roof lately?
No. I hope they stay off the roof now, dude. That right there, that unnerved me pretty bad. I mean, I've had them beat the wall, hit the wall, slap the wall, whatever you want to say, knock on it. I've heard them scrape, sound like fingernails go down the wall for 30 feet. You just hear it just scraping. I mean, I had a buddy sitting in there with me one night, and actually, it's before I added this part on. It was the old part of the cabin, and we were sitting there watching a movie, and you hear something bump the wall, and all of a sudden it streaks down the wall probably 30 feet, and it sounded like nails dragging, and it just kept going. I muted the TV. It done it long enough. I muted the TV, and we were sitting there about 10 foot apart looking at each other. And my buddy was mouthing. He was going, "What the hell is that?" And I'm like, I said, he's like, "It just keeps going." And we were talking. This thing just kept scraping down the wall. But, I mean, two of the things that I've had in the last couple of months probably 3 or 4 months now, but something absolutely jerked on the door. I mean, without a doubt, that's exactly. If I went out there right now, pushed in on the big glass storm door, if I pushed in and jerked it real hard, you can hear that. It made that noise. So it jerked on the door. And then that one got on the roof. Now, those two right there unnerved me a lot more than them just hitting on the wall.
So, I'm trying to find the right way to put this. Do you feel like, maybe you're in danger there?
I don't think as much it's dangerous. I just think now they're curious and they're letting me know that they're out there. That one the other night when it rang that propane tank, so I hadn't had anything happen in several weeks. I mean, nothing. It's like they were gone, and they'll do that. You may have something go on, 2 or 3 times a week for a while, and then all of a sudden it'll just stop. You may not have nothing happen for 2 or 3 weeks. It may be a month. It may be 6 weeks. And then all of a sudden they're back. It's like they're moving in, just changing area. I think they're just following the game or whatever, and they're just making a loop. And I don't think they're going far. I mean, I'd say within probably a 5-10 mile radius. But I think for some reason they're just moving around, just following the game.
Well, if they're a large predator, they can't stay still. They
No.
they've got to have a range, or they'd pretty much eat everything there is to eat in one small area.
Oh yeah, that. But I mean, I thought
Americans did the same thing. They followed the herds.
exactly, and that's what I talked to Coonbo. I talked to Troy Allen too, which is one of mine. Coonbo's almost like a brother to us. But that's what I told him. I said, "Y'all, I mean, I hadn't heard nothing out here in several weeks." I said, "Boy, it smacked the crap out of that propane tank," and that's what Coonbo and Troy both said. He said, "Well, they're just letting you know they're back out there." But I hadn't had any belligerent encounters in several years now since I accidentally made peace with them. And I mean, that was just strictly by accident. I mean, I didn't know what I was doing, but it worked because I've had so many belligerent encounters with these things, getting bluff charged, the screaming, roaring, yelling, throwing stuff at us. And it wasn't just me. I'm talking about that was my buddy Alan. That's a lot of people seen him on with me. I mean, me and him's been through the thick and the thin of these damn things. And, we had some rough encounters with them. I mean, horribly, terribly, like I'm not going to make any encounters. And once I did what I did over there that night, and it absolutely, that one was within, it was within 40, 50 feet of us. And it was just in the thicket. We had an open clearing about, 30 something feet, maybe 40. And this thing was just in the thick stuff, in the old growed up briars and bushes and old cutover. And I would dare say if this thing took one long step, it would have popped out in the open. And me and Alan and his buddy were standing there. And, I done come up with a game plan. What's going to happen if this thing steps out and charges us? So when I told him, I said, "Look, brother, you don't fire a shot till you hear the 5th round go out of this Browning 30-06. I said, "But when you hear that number 5 go off, then you cut loose with that Browning 7 mag. And I told his buddy, I said, dude, don't you fire a round till you hear the fourth round go off out of that one. I said, so when you hear the first gunshot, when you hear the ninth one, then you crank up with that 40 caliber Glock. He's like, well, what we gonna do? What we gonna do? I said, look, dude, we're not gonna be here with all our guns empty. And I told Alan, I said, look, brother, as soon as this number 5 goes out of this semi-auto, I said, I'm either gonna be ready when he goes dry with this 357, but I'm gonna be chunking rounds back in this Hawk 6. And y'all, I mean, why I done it, I don't know, but I'd heard one of the most vocal sounds that we heard, well, the one we heard the most was they would whoop, W-H-O-O-P, and it would be long and it would be loud, and these things would whoop. But I'm standing there, and Alan's going, what are you going to do? I said, man, I don't know, but I'm going to try something. And I raised my head back, and as long and loud as I could basically scream the word whoop, I tried to stretch it till I gave completely out of breath. And when I did that, that thing was across that little opening, and it was huffing and grumbling and breaking stuff, and it was disgruntled. I'm talking about mad. I mean, it wasn't the worst I ever heard one tore up angry, but it wasn't happy. And as soon as I did that, it was like you mashed an off button or a mute button. Instantly, that thing stopped. It got deathly quiet. And then it was like 3, 2, 1, and you hear it like it was disgusted, just like you gave somebody bad news. And they went, ugh. It did that, got quiet for a few more seconds, and it was like that thing turned around and it started walking dead away from us through that old cutover, that old growed up mess. And dude, it was breaking limbs and crushing stuff and pushing saplings apart. And it walked dead away from us. I mean, it left, went out there 100 or so yards and stopped. Grumbled a couple more times, took off walking, and I dare say we heard it go 200 yards before it went out of hearing. But that was the very last time that they tried to bluff charge me, that they done anything really belligerent, tried to just wreak havoc on us. And I don't know why that diffused the situation. It was almost to me like, well, crap, he knows what we are, and he ain't left by now. The gig's up, and really, I mean, that's all I can kind of describe it.
So you definitely think under the right circumstances, these things could be dangerous.
Oh, you damn right. You can bet that hat on it.
Well, I hear so many stories of people and I'm probably going to piss a couple people off, but when I hear like the Steve Lilly story, when you hear the people say, well, the Sabe people, I'm like, you've never clearly seen one. While I believe they can be peaceful, I believe you catch one in the wrong mood and you're a missing 411.
I'll dare say that different people have different encounters with different animals or different creatures. I also will say this. I'm not the guy that's going to go to Yellowstone and go up and try to pet a bison. I'm not the guy that's going to go up and try to get my picture made hugging a grizzly. I mean, we don't know what rules these things play by. And I can tell you what, for many years, these things didn't like me. They didn't like my dad. They didn't like Alan and a couple more people that went with me. They didn't like us being there. It's just I was too stubborn and had too much redneck hillbilly blood in me to be ran off. And y'all, I have come out of them woods before, get to my house, which is about 7 miles away, go in the door and sit down and lean over in my chair and put my hands or my elbows on my knees and just be, my head down going, I'm stupid. I'm crazy. I'm not going back over there. I'm not going to live. I'm not going to make it. Them things is fixing to kill me. And it may take me 2 or 3 days. It may take me a week. And it has took me 2 weeks. But I would eventually, finally, my blood would boil. I'd go back over there. Now, I would arm up a little extra heavy. I'd put an extra speed loader in my pocket. I'd carry an extra box of 30-06. I'd get a bigger flashlight. I even started toting road flares.
Because we know what road flares do.
Hey, I'm telling you, boys, look, I knew like this. Look, if I get over there and I get hemmed up, I can't get out to get me trapped. I got enough ammo to at least hold them off. Well, I'm gonna ride out with the Forestry Service fire crew when they come in there to put the woods out, because I'll burn that whole place down before I get eaten by a monster. I'll be that guy. I'll sit in the federal pen and bang my little metal can on the damn wall, want some coffee. I don't care.
I was about to say somebody must have read a Nightmare Hunter before they went out there.
Hey. Y'all, I mean, really, look, I mean, I hadn't experienced it myself, but I've got men that I've been in the woods with that I trust with my life. And when you have 4 of them men sit there together and tell you about the times that they went out, had every flashlight, their cameras, their recorders. I'm talking about, it was like 40-something batteries, all went, brand new batteries, all went dead within 5 minutes when they pulled up and got out and started having activity. Well, look,
I got unexplainable power outages on devices. A lot of
yes. Well, what I got to figuring out was, if I'm off over in the dang deep dark woods with these things like I have been, and I ain't got, now look, I tried to be out of the woods before I got to have a light, but I got over and I thought, well, if these things get me hemmed up in here and it gets dark, don't matter how many batteries I got, if they zap them all. Well, I got thinking, I can buy them road flares. They're really cheap. They burn magnesium. They make suck the power out of magnesium, but I really doubt it. So I figure the long ones burn 30 minutes, the short ones burn 15. So if I put 2 long ones in my hunting pack and 2 short ones, man, I got an hour and a half on pretty bright light. And, you know, them things burn at like 3,000 degrees like a blowtorch.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good magic wand for self-defense if you had to poke something with it.
There is. Flare gun do a pretty good job too.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're dragging around in a shotgun.
I'm assuming Greg hasn't made it to the Nightmare Hunter yet.
No, I haven't. I got to.
Remember, just remember, flare gun. When you pick up Nightmare Hunter to start reading it, just say in your head, flare gun, and when you get to the point, you'll be like, "That's what they meant."
The flare gun thing is in the second Lakeview Man.
I thought that was a Nightmare Hunter. Where
it's the character from the Nightmare Hunter. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's the character, but it happens in
Lakeview. Second Lakeview Man. I'm sorry.
I'll have to get in on that one then. I'll have to read that.
Main character from the Nightmare Hunter is the one that's in the second Lakeview Man. So when you get to that, you'll be like, "That's what they meant."
Y'all, I'm gonna tell y'all something that y'all will enjoy this, and I'm sure most of the folks that's in here will enjoy it. But my cousin, me and him, everybody thinks we're brothers. I mean, he looks, bless his heart, he looks a whole lot like me, and he acts a whole lot like me. But he grew up here in North Alabama, just about 30 miles from me. But him and 3 of his buddies saved up their money, and they went to the Alabama Deer Expo. This has been about 10 years. And there was one of those outfitter places that was in Canada, and it was a bear hunt. Now look, these guys got roped in. My cousin and 3 of his buddies got roped in. They spent like $3,000 or $4,000 a piece to go on this big Alaskan, or not Alaskan, but Canadian bear hunt. Gonna go up there and kill bears, and they showed pictures of this big elaborate lodge. Well, they were supposed to furnish your meals, the place to go. They were going to put you on the stand, all included deal. The only thing they had to do was drive up there and drive back home. Well, they got up there, and he said that the lodge was there, just like it was on the videos. But that's where the people that was carrying you lived. That was what they called the lodge. They stayed in these little, like 12 by 20 little bunk houses behind it. Didn't even have a bathroom or anything. Well, he said kind of got over that. He said, I grew up hunting and roughing it. Well, he said that the breakfast concluded of they gave you a croissant, and they carried them out and dumped them out on a tree stand. They'd pull down this road and say, "Look, you see that ribbon? Go that way 200 yards and you'll find a stand." He said, "We'll be back at dark." Now look, they're letting them out at daylight, and they handed them a brown paper sack that had a canned soda, an apple, and a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. That's it. It's like, here you go, here's lunch. We'll see you at dark. They walk out through the woods and sat all day. They didn't see Didn't see a bear. Nobody. There was like 12 people hunting the first day. Didn't see a bear. Well, they got back that night, and he said they had a pretty nice dinner laid out for them in the big building. And he said the main guide guy got up, told him, he said, guys, said, you know, we realize that y'all aren't from this area, and we don't know if y'all have ever been around a moose. Of course, they were like, you know, we from North Alabama, man. We seen one of them in a zoo. He said, well, look, said, we want y'all to know, said, the moose up here are in rut. And he said, they're really dangerous. And, you know, we just want to tell y'all how to conduct yourself if you're in the woods and a moose charges you, you know, what you need to do. And, or if you even think you hear one, said you need to kind of hide and all this. And my cousin told me he had a buddy, Scotty, and he was like redneck to the quantum power. Scotty, my cousin, Stanley told me, he said, man, said, I just thought, oh my God. Said Scotty spoke up, said, Mr. Guide, he said, I don't know how y'all do stuff up here in Canada. He said, but we just a bunch of old rednecks down there in Alabama. He said, I got news for you. He said, that moose charges me. He said, it's like this. Said, if I'm in them woods with that high-powered rifle, said, I ain't about to be no damn victim. And said the guy looks at him. He said, what do you mean? He said, I'm going to pile that some gun up. Said, he ain't going to stomp on me. And said, the guide goes, wait a minute, sir. Said, sir, no, you can't do that. Said, it's not moose season. You don't have a tag. Said, you can't kill a moose. He said, look here, by God. Said, I'll cover that son of a gun up with leaves, keep my mouth shut. He said, y'all won't find it till the buzzards are just circling. He said, I'll done be back down there in Alabama, and I don't care what you do. The guide wasn't going to let not near one of them four go back in the woods. He said, look, we had to beg and plead and tell him, said, look, we swear he ain't going to kill your moose. He said, well, he said he would. He said, no, he won't. He said, I thought I'm lying to this guy. And he said, Scotty will pile him up. There's a herd of them.
That's funny.
Well, I don't blame him. I ain't getting stomped to death either.
No. Who in their right mind would?
You need to hide. No. I got a rifle. I'm going to shoot.
Yeah. But y'all, I mean, seriously, like these boogers, I don't want to have to shoot one. I am the guy. I am the guy that's had my rifle leveled down, safety flipped off, finger on the trigger, thinking I'm fixing to have to shoot one of these things. I've been that guy. I've been in that predicament more than once.
I mean, Noah and I cleared leather and Joe Bald. I ain't too proud to admit that. We all three cleared leather.
Yep.
Well, boys, I'm telling you, the thing that scares me is just like Bill White, Tal Bronco told me. He said, that man looked me square in the eye sitting on my porch. He said, son, let me tell you something. Said, if you ever have to shoot one of these things, he said, it needs to be a have-to situation. You've got no other choice. I said, yes, sir. He said, let me tell you something. Don't get tunnel vision on that and you just shot. He said, you may pile it up. It may run off screaming. He said, you better get your head on a swivel and you better be looking for the ones that you didn't know was there. And he said, you better be planning your retreat fast, quick, in a damn hurry.
That is exactly why I don't want to shoot one.
You're right.
It's going to be, last resort, save my life or somebody else. And then immediately followed by us, backing out of the area, unassing the AO in a very rapid pace.
Yeah. No, I don't want to. I don't want to.
I think even if you did put one down, I don't know you're going to have enough time to do anything with it. That's why I'm not advocating try to bring one down to prove it to science. I mean, I already believe these things exist. I don't need any proof, and I'm not trying to prove it to anybody. I'm just I'm just a Missouri hillbilly sharing stories and telling what I've learned over the years. But it would take some pretty dire circumstances before I'd put lead on one.
The only way that I ever plan on trying to prove it to somebody that these things are real is for them to come down here and go with me, and them go live through what I've lived through, see what I've seen, experience what I've experienced, and then they can tell me, oh, they're not real and they don't exist.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had too many cases of Missouri Department of Conservation look me dead in the eye and say, you didn't see a black panther. They don't exist in Missouri. Bullshit. Mm-hmm. We shot at it.
Yeah. I don't. I still don't. I mean, we got all kind of theory. We got nearly as many theories on why the government's covering it up as the theories on what the damn things are.
Yeah,
Yep.
there's a lot of different theories on why they would want to cover these things up.
Mhm.
But I think the probably the most logical bit of it all boils down to money.
Oh yeah, I
Government
agree.
don't do nothing that don't make them money.
Yep. But you know the thing about it though, DA, is it ain't just our government. It's governments all around the world dealing with these things.
Yeah, it ain't just ours. There's corruption and double dealing done at every level of government all across the planet. Some worse than others, but it's all bad. You know, what I would like to do, and I know this is just me wishful thinking, is I live right here in Springfield, Missouri, which is the headquarters of Bass Pro Shops. Johnny Morris, the guy that owns Bass Pro, lives right here. I would like to get an appointment and pitch a show idea to him to send some folks out like us that are looking to document and not necessarily bring one down. But if there was a guy that would support displaying one, it'd be the guy that owns freaking Bass Pro.
No doubt. He might give us
He might laugh it off as a joke, saying, "I don't really believe these things exist." But if you get one, you could bet your ass he's a billionaire. I mean, he don't give two shits what anybody says. I'm going to display it. No, you're not. The fuck, I ain't. You watch me.
Look, all I can tell you is if I'm involved in it, we're gonna have to have it in the deal somewhere. If we did get a Bigfoot for him to display, we got lifetime passes to fishing or aquarium. Any Bass Pro there is.
That hey, that's good dealing, Greg.
That sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
If I could put together a prospectus, that kind of thing, I wonder if I could get, because he could throw 10 million at us and write it off on his taxes. I mean, billionaire ain't going to miss that kind of money. But if I could get him to sponsor it, dude, and I'm not going to name any shows by name. I'm just not going to call anybody out. But there's a lot of shows on about Bigfoot, and most of them are just a joke. They really are. And
anybody that's dealt with these things much at all can look at the shows and tell those shows are made for TV. That's all it is. It's not about finding anything. It's not about giving evidence. It's about like watching WWE wrestling. It's all about people, the spectators.
Yeah, and those shows, they're there to get ratings. They're there to get viewership so they can get sponsors and therefore make more money. I get that. But if we had the right sponsor, Bass Pro would be a great one. If we had the right sponsor, we don't have to give a crap about any of that. We just present what we find. I mean, take a week and go into freaking Portlock, Alaska, and just live stream it. Maybe we find something, maybe we don't. But we're not gonna put Greg in the messing with Sasquatch suit and have him running around in the woods whooping at us just so we can get something on film.
No,
it's not going to be. You hear that coyote? That's probably a Bigfoot. No, it's not. It's probably a coyote.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what I commented earlier in live chat. And we can name several of them. I know y'all can name the same ones that I have. The people that's got on shows, or maybe got their own show, they got notoriety. And do I believe that they actually had an encounter? Yeah, I really believe that a lot of them were legitimate. They had encounters, but they ran out of stuff to continue on. And I think that's where the fabrication part come in.
I agree.
Yeah, I do too.
If we can pull off what Robbie and I were talking about when he was here, if we could pull off being able to build the equipment I want to build and go live from these locations, to me that would be a much better show than anything that they've managed to script and script out and plot out. These live shows where anything could happen. And watch TV sets because we don't even know what's going to pop out. Maybe we don't find anything, maybe we do. But the thing about it is they'd be seeing it live as we did, and I think that would be something not only great for for a YouTube channel, but great for a TV show. I mean, who else is doing that?
Well, the thing that we would have to do is, first off, we can't let these big Hollywood type producers and directors get involved, because y'all know it. Because Greg, I've heard you talk about all the movies that there's always somebody who thinks they know what's best, and they think that you have to make sure that when we do this deal that it's ironclad of, look, we're in charge, we know what we're doing, we know what we're looking for. Not you sit in an office in Hollywood, you have no clue what's going on.
Right.
That'd
be funny.
To it.
Jay Bowers is out in the middle of a live show, and here comes Clark and Gray Eagle telling you to shut it down.
No doubt.
That would be
well, I mean, what it's lacking, you got actors portraying researchers. Mm-hmm. I'd rather say researchers portraying actors. I mean, really, just reverse it around and get people that know what they're doing, or people that's really, really have had experiences. And, that's like some of the big name folks. They've had one encounter, one. Man, I could sit right here and name you 10 people, me included, that's had multiple sightings, multiple encounters, many encounters. I know several people that's living on farms where these things frequent. They've dealt with them for years.
I've had 4 or 5 encounters. I mean, and I'm not anything special. I've just been lucky.
Yeah. But what I'm saying, though, is they're missing out on a lot of these people, even the ones, and it is pretty good. One of the shows that was so popular, the best thing that they had going, they didn't spend enough time on, was the town hall meetings and the actual encounters from the people.
Yep, we've talked about that before. Because
I'd a whole lot rather watch that instead of them traipsing through the woods with about 50 people and cameras. And
didn't you say that you knew somebody that was in one of the town hall meetings that had a good sighting or a good story, and they just totally wrote off that person to go somewhere else because it sounded cooler or whatever?
Well, yeah, it's not.
I'm not going to call any shows out. I'm not going to call anybody by name. And I'm not going to say the state because it'd be a dead giveaway. But I know a cryptid type show that had the opportunity to go to one of the most credible sightings I have ever heard from anyone. And they pissed it away for something that was in a city park.
Wow. Oh, that's nice.
I'll tell you when we're off the air what that was, but I'm not gonna call any shows out. That's not what I'm about. I'm not trying to throw shade on anybody. It was very disappointing that they had the opportunity to go to literally one of the most terrifying encounter stories I've ever heard, and instead went someplace where they could film in a city park.
Look, Craig hit the nail on the head right here. I mean, that's it right there. Read that. I mean, Greg, you know that. DA, you know that. I mean, other times you're going to use your lights, yeah, but that's it right there. You don't. I'm trying to say this without, like you said, calling anybody out, but you don't stop in the middle of these situations and be like, "We heard him yelling. We got to get up there and find out what's going on."
Mm-mm.
When did you record this? Did you record this as it was going on?
Yeah. And some of it's just like painfully obvious. It's just scripted.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'll tell you something else, Dave. It would, I mean, like you was talking about somebody putting the money out. Dude, if you had some of these people, like these guys, and I guess we could let Robbie learn to do it, or you do it one. Probably need somebody young that's really good at video games. But y'all, they've got these dang drones now, like those drones where they race those things around through woods and everything else. Oh my God, could you imagine having one of those? I mean, spend 20 grand on one or 50 grand, have FLIR, night vision, all this stuff associated with it. I mean, why could you not have one and have it where you could, do a dart with a tracking beacon in it, where you could tag something?
We kind of ahead of you on that one, Greg. We got 2 drones. I got one. DA's got one, and my future son-in-law, the big tall guy that was with us at the meet and greet. He's the tech guy of my group. He's already got a few things that he's working, like putting some night vision and stuff on that drone that I've got. He's just trying to work some things out with what he can and can't do with it, what it can and can't accept. So,
I mean, seriously, think if you could put a tracker where it could, dart one where it would be under its skin, where it wouldn't even know it was there, stick it with a dart and it run off. But guess what? You got a tracker that lasts for 10 years. You know exactly where it goes, where it's at, and what it's doing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there would be all kind of things that could be done.
Don't go after it like a sensationalized TV show. Go after it like National Geographic, where they were legitimately tracking the animals.
Yep.
Yes.
Well, we've said it before. Mountain gorillas were thought to be, just a myth until 1930 something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, something like that.
The Great Panda, where it was in the 50s, I think, before it was finally, stories of a mysterious black and white bear that lived in the hills of China and ate bamboo.
Mm-hmm.
The British Museum, I love making fun of those guys. They said that mountain gorillas didn't exist. No way. And then a hunter drags one in, throws it on a desk, and suddenly it's, oh no, they couldn't possibly exist.
He finally got to do it. Y'all know how long he hadn't been wanting to do this.
No doubt. Hey, look, dude.
There it is. I get to name it. I saw it first.
Yeah, look, I've still got questions about people that one of their food staples is a piece of bread with some pinto beans poured on it. Or pork and beans, not pintos. It'd be better with pinto. Man, that nearly makes me want to throw up when they show that their beans on toast.
Beans on
God. It's like, it looks like somebody just poured a can of pork and beans over top of a piece of loaf bread. Now, come on, folks.
My mother used to do. And I hadn't thought about this in years until you said that. She'd make a big old thing of brown beans with ham hock in it and big old thing of fried potatoes. And then she'd take 2 pieces of white bread and butter them and lay them down. And then she'd cover that white bread with the beans and ham and then scoop potatoes on either side. Oh, that was so good.
No, I could see that, but I'm talking about looks like pork and beans, just cold pork and beans poured on a piece of loaf bread. Mm.
Yeah, I'm going to take a big old pass on that.
Yeah.
Kay Bauer says, Greg, those are the folks that pour cream corn on toast and collect cornbread. That ain't cornbread.
No doubt.
If you were raised in a household that your mother didn't have those cast iron baking pans that looked like a corn on the cob, you missed out.
That's exactly right.
Remember many a year living on those. It was what we used to call those brown beans and fried taters, Ozark Mountain steroids. Because that was a staple. We had that about once a week growing up because it was a cheap meal and there was a bunch of us. And food had to go a long way. And Mom would make a great big old pot of them beans with ham in them. Oh, I still love a good bowl of brown beans. That's one of my favorites.
Oh man,
my great grandmother used to make make a big thing of cornbread and cook corn fresh out of the garden, take a bowl and crumble up cornbread in it, and then put corn all over the top of it, put some good salt and pepper on it. But
my mom would take the day after cornbread and break it up, put it in a bowl, put a little sugar and milk on it. That was good too.
Mm-hmm.
Making me hungry.
Y'all speaking my language. Y'all got to remember, son, I'm in the heart of Dixie right here. Look here.
And I'm not.
You're close.
I'm in
It's South
freaking
South
Dacresville,
Crackalacky.
South Carolina. It don't get much more heart than that. I mean,
No doubt. They I'll tell you guys, that's like earlier y'all were talking about, about food and stuff. And here's the thing. This is what really set in with me. My grandpa, my dad's dad, he was born in 1905 and he died in 87 at 82 years old. And I was born 74. So, I mean, I was like 15 years old when he passed. But me and him was really close. And that man told me over and over and over, he'd tell me, he'd say, son, he said, that 22 rifle right there you holding? I said, yes, sir. He said, if it hadn't been for that rifle and just a handful of shells, he said, we'd starve to death during the Depression. He said, we'd starve to death. And he'd always tell me, he said, son, when you got money, you make sure you buy shells and put them up. He said, there may be a day you can't afford any. And y'all, I took that man to heart.
I'm telling you, if you got a good 22 long rifle, you can feed yourself.
every
You're right.
If you're a decent shot and you live anywhere near the woods, you can feed yourself.
Every major game animal in North America has been taken down with a 22.
Oh, guaranteed.
I could keep us fed on, if we went up like we're near where my family all lives up near Lebanon, I could keep us fed on rabbits alone, because rabbits are thick as thieves. But then you got squirrels and god dang, man, so much stuff you can bring down with a 22.
We ain't gonna talk about the legalities of it, but I'm in Alabama and look, there's a lot of people use rifle to fish with.
I've never fished with a rifle.
You're missing out, brother.
I have shot the living crap out of snapping turtles when we had a stocked pond.
Yeah.
You get a couple snapping turtles in there and they'll eat all your stock. So whenever we'd get a snapping turtle in the pond, that was our job to go down and dissuade them of their choice and locations.
Well, see, by the time like my dad and them, they used to go around the ponds and stuff, and they would frog gig, with a gig on a pole, frog spear.
Done that.
Well, we got to where we took it up. We just take spotlight and shine around the pond, stay in one spot, and we'd shoot them frogs in the head. Then we go around and get them. They didn't get away as fast.
Yeah, you tend to not get away as fast when you got a bullet in your head.
That's exactly right. That was our thoughts.
I mean, doesn't slow you down to touch.
I have never fished with a gun, but I have shot a few fish. I pulled a big old gar in a boat one time, and I shot that son of a gun.
Yeah, honest to God, right here, right now, if we went up here to any of these restaurants or stores or whatever, you walk up to a grown man that's 40 years and older and say, "Hey, I wonder if anybody's been rifling." That's what they called it, rifling. Instead of fishing, you say rifling. Well, that's usually in the spring when the suckers and stuff like that would be running, and they'd catch them on a shoal, and they'd just ease up the shoal and get them in a shallow water, and they'd just take a 22 rifle and pop, 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 pop. They'd float down. Somebody'd be catching them, throwing them on the bank. And I mean, that's what they'd call it. I mean, that was just like just as normal as, hey, let's go quail hunting. It was like, hey, y'all want to go rifling for suckers?
Someone asked if we ate the snapping turtles that we shot. You betcha. When I was a kid growing up on the farm, if we shot it, we ate it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, nothing go to waste.
I've had turtle many a time.
Yep.
And that's a funny part about a snapping turtle is different parts of it taste like different things.
There's about 6 or 7 different flavors of meat in a turtle.
Yeah, there are. The legs of them, if you cook those right, they just taste like a chicken wing.
Yep.
Quite a bit of meat on them, to be shocked, be surprised.
What was it? Because my great grandmother used to make turtle soup. What's that's something inside the main part of the shell, I think, though, isn't it, Greg?
Yeah, I think so. They'd make a soup out of the stuff up on in it, just like on the back muscles and stuff like that. Well, you make it out of any of it, but hey, look, my grandpa, I got I got in trouble by my grandpa one time. He told me that if I'd kill him a bunch of squirrels, as long as I'd keep him in squirrels, he'd keep me in 22 rifle shells. Well, I was being what I thought was smart. I was shooting them all in the head where it wouldn't mess the meat up. So I carried him 12 squirrels in Ziploc bags. I'd skin them out, washed them, cleaned them, ready to either cook or go in the freezer. I walked up there, had 6 in each big gallon Ziploc bag, showed them to him. I said, Pop, check these out. He looked at them. He said, where's the rest of them? I said, well, Pop, they 6 in each bag. He said, I'm talking about, I said, where's the rest of them squirrels? I said, what are you talking about? He said, where's the heads? I said, what do you mean the heads? He said, what'd you do with the heads? I said, well, what was left of them, I fed them to my hound dog. He said, boy, get your daddy to tell you how to fix them squirrels. And my daddy he said, look, if you're going to carry him squirrels, no, don't shoot them in the head. And said, I'd have to skin them out and leave their head, little teeth still up in them. And my granny would boil the heads and he'd sit there and eat squirrel brains.
Yep, squirrel brains and dumplings.
Never tried that. I always shot him in the head because, save the meat.
Yeah.
I tell you though, on a really cold winter day, hard to beat a really good thick rabbit stew.
Oh man, yes.
Make that right. Oh my God.
Yes, sir. Hey, I was posted a while ago. Man, there's nothing any better than fried quail. Take those quail and half them and fry them, or put them on the smoker. Quail is unreal how good.
Not a lot of meat on one, but it is pretty tasty.
No, that's the reason you got to kill your limit. That way you got plenty to eat.
Yep, that's right.
You like duck?
Duck's good.
Little greasy, but
right
it is
one.
good.
If you get the right one.
Look, where I live, the part of Alabama I live in, I'd have to drive several miles to really hunt ducks. So I never got into duck hunting. That, and then I figured out that I was too much of a hillbilly redneck. I'd want to shoot whatever come over. And I realized that there was certain ducks you could kill, and I didn't really know what they were flying, so I was afraid I'd be in prison right now. So I never had anybody that could fix any duck for me to try it that knew what they was doing. I've tried it a couple of times, and I didn't much care for it, but that was pretty much their, maiden voyage on cooking duck. So I figure it was probably their cooking more than it was the meat.
I was working patrol one night outside the hospital and saw the damnedest thing I think I've ever seen. And I'd driven by a couple of times on this end of the parking lot, and there were 3 Hispanic guys just sitting in a pickup. And I figured they was at the hospital visiting somebody. I wasn't messing with them. They weren't bothering anybody. So I just kept driving. Would every once in a while I'd go by. And after about an hour or so, I was starting to like, wait, these guys aren't going in and out of the hospital. They're just still sitting here in this pickup. Well, they were parked with the passenger side right up close to one of the water features out there because they got 2 or 3 of them. And I pulled around where I could kind of see up next to the truck, and they had a fishing net spread out on the ground with the rope running back into the cab of the truck. And a goose walked out on that net, and they yanked that son of a gun right into the cab of that truck, and boom, took off. I'm like, I ain't gonna stop you. I mean, you don't have to take off like a bat out of hell, but I was laughing my ass off. I'd never seen anybody net a goose before. Freaking long neck Canadian goose.
DA, one of my buddies, he wound up being a investigator, and then he wound up being like a lieutenant up here in one of these bigger towns in North Alabama. We'll just put it that way. But about 20, I guess it's probably been probably 30 years ago now when he first went to work up there. He said he got a call to an apartment complex, and he said he got up there and he said there was people screaming and yelling and raising Cain. And he said, I thought I was going to fight the whole complex. I said, what was going on? He said, well, to start with, the people up there was screaming at him to make them stop. He said when he got over there and trying to get the 2 old Hispanic boys to quit what they were doing, then he thought he was going to fight them. But he said right in the middle of this apartment complex, he said these 2 Hispanic dudes didn't realize that it was really, I ain't going to say illegal, but it was kind of improper that they'd hung a goat up and was bleeding it, skinning it in the apartment complex courtyard from one of the little oak trees. He said, Lord said they had blood everywhere, and he said people was hollering, kids was crying, and said them Hispanics was said everybody's trying to make them quit. He said, man, he said, I got this. I mean, it was just a normal practice probably where they're from. He said, we grew up on farms. We slaughtered our animals, but said I couldn't make them figure out what was wrong with doing it in the middle of an apartment complex.
I saw a guy during deer season skinning out a buck in the front yard of an apartment complex. And he lived in the apartment complex, and he didn't have any place else to do it. He just threw a rope over a tree branch, dragged that sucker up, and was skinning it out right there. People were looking at him, but this is Missouri, so nobody said too terribly much.
Yeah.
Well, we know what happened to old Jace Robertson with his old HOA when he skinned his deer out in the front yard.
Boys, I'm going to tell you, I'm not HOA material. I would never be able to survive in an HOA.
No, thank you. I'm not letting some Karen tell me how long my grass can be and whether or not I can fly a flag. And no, not going to be part of an HOA. That ain't happening.
No.
Well, boys, we've been on here about 2.5 hours. We'll have to start winding things down. But I've had a good time, and I'm feeling pretty good, so I'm not even out of breath, so I'm pretty happy about that.
Man, I'm just glad you're doing good, and I appreciate y'all asking me to come on for a few minutes.
Oh, and we definitely enjoy hanging out with you, man. It's always a hoot.
I always just try to be me, brother. I'm a little wild and weird, but hey, that's the way I am.
I don't know how to be anybody else, so I just got to be me.
Yeah.
And Robbie can attest to this. Greg hasn't met me in person yet, but folks, if you see how I am on here, you run into me uptown, that's the same. I don't put on any airs. I don't pretend to be somebody I'm not. I'm just a Ozarks hillbilly, and that's pretty much all I'm ever going to be. And I happen to write a few books and like to get on here and talk about cryptids. That's I ain't nothing special. I just a Ozarks hillbilly. All I'm ever going to be.
Well, DA, my thing on, and that's what me and Spencer and Misty about woodwalkers. That's what we want. We want everybody to, what they see is what they get. Now, look, we have to kind of dumb it down just a little bit. Be on the air. We done been booted off. But look, we ain't nothing but a bunch of crazy hillbillies, rednecks, and, we are us. And I'm not trying to be something I'm not. Because, look, I mean, I'm telling people what I've lived through, and I'm asking them to take me at my word on these encounters that I've had and all the stuff that I've done and lived through. I don't want to muddy the water with people going, well, man, you can't believe that guy because, man, you see him on there, he acts this way, and you see him out in public, he acts somewhere different. No, what y'all say is what y'all get. And I don't want anybody to ever go, hey, see being up front, no. No, I'll just be me, and then we won't worry about it.
And that's why we like you guys so much from Woodwalkers, because you guys are pretty much just like us.
Yep.
Only socially acceptable in our own categories.
Hey, was that birds of a feather thing, right?
That's right, exactly.
There you go.
Well, brother, appreciate you coming on, and always enjoy it because you've had a bunch of experiences going on right there at your place, and and I'm glad that we're on the same page on that because I try to discourage people from assuming these things are going to be like big cuddly teddy bears. But grizzly bears ain't teddy bears, and that's a fact. Mm-hmm. But I've been close enough to a grizzly bear where if it wanted me dead, I'd have been dead. And I did not intend to get that close. I rounded a corner, and there that son of a gun was. Ooh. But had it been a different set of circumstances, if it had a cub, or if it had just woke up from hibernation, or was about to go in one, I'd have been bear chow. So it was just one of those, right place, right time. It didn't want me, and I didn't want it, and we went our separate ways. But that could have been very bad. All it would have taken is a couple of little things to be different. If that bear had been hungry, and I rounded that corner, I'd have been a crunchy fish stick, basically. And I think it's the same thing with these creatures with boogers. You might run into one 10 times, but that 11th time you catch him in a bad mood, you might grab the top of your head and twist it off like a mason jar lid.
Mm-hmm.
And we've talked about the grizzly man before. I mean, he spent how much time thinking, oh, they're safe, they're great, and he caught that wrong one on that wrong time, and oh well.
That one old boy that went out there was living with him, and it was him and his girlfriend. They wound up, they got
that was him, the grizzly man.
All right. Well, now if I'm not wrong and didn't get my wires crossed up, that guy originally was from Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Did y'all know that?
I didn't know that.
No,
Mm-hmm.
I mean I've seen that documentary before, but it's been so long since I've seen it. I remember his name. I know I remember the girl's name just because it was one of those strange names. Her last name was like Huguenard or something like that. But I do remember him being somewhere from the South, but I didn't remember if it was Alabama.
I think that's right. I know it was Alabama, but I want to think that he was from Tuscaloosa, and it blew my mind. I thought, here he is from Alabama, and go out there and then get buried. But
when you get these people that ain't got a lick of sense and try to go into Yellowstone and pet the fluffy cows, it don't work out well for them.
No.
I'm perfectly, I perfectly believe that under the right circumstances, you might be able to walk right up to a buffalo, or it might stomp you to death. And any wild animal has that potential, and Bigfoot or Dogman is no different. If you encounter one, you better exercise some caution, because it's not going to sit down and sing Kumbaya with you, and it might just tote you off to eat later.
Mm-hmm. And when me and Johnny were driving through, there was one of those buffaloes that just happened to be out walking. And correct me if I'm wrong, Greg, those are smaller than like what you would find in Yellowstone too. Those are a little bit different, right? And DA, you know how big my truck is, and this thing's shoulders were above the hood of my truck. I looked at Johnny. I said, I can't. What are these people smoking that makes them want to go up there and pet these things? He said, I have no idea. Because we were nervous just driving the truck. I said, if we piss this thing off, it's going to flip my truck over as we're driving beside it. Because we were walking and just kind of cut its eyes to the side looking at us. And I'm like, please don't hit my truck. Please don't hit my truck.
Well,
that episode of Longmire, when that one butts the front end of his Bronco, shook the whole dang truck.
Well, yeah. There's videos all over YouTube of those little safaris they go out in Africa of rhinoceros and elephants just coming up there and flipping those cars over like they're nothing. And there's pictures or videos of buffalo doing that to those cars out in Yellowstone that they get pissed off.
Buffalo, and that's an animal. If you miss, it's probably going to kill you.
Did y'all see the video? Did y'all see the video of the woman that was on the African? She was somewhere in Africa. It was like a park you could drive through and look. Her and her husband got in an argument, and she got out because she was mad, and the lion got her. Did y'all see that one?
No, I did not.
Yes, I'm talking about it. The lion ran up there and like snatched her, and then drug her off in the bushes, and she was gone.
Yeah, at that point, unless you want to join her, you ain't getting her back.
No. That's what they did. Like I said, they said that they'd got in an argument. She got mad and stormed out of the vehicle. And sure enough, she didn't. She walked around like was pointing her finger and griping at him at the driver's window. And that lion came out, like grabbed her and just jerked her in the woods. She's gone.
Yep. Then it will take a few seconds because we are no match
win that argument
when it comes to strength for those things.
Bad joke, but I couldn't.
Boys, we could. I'm sure we could keep this going for hours, but I've got to start winding stuff down. Greg, don't run off. I want to show you something for you kick loose, folks. We're coming
Okay.
up at the end of the show. I know we didn't get to Ken Brock tonight, but check out brockblades.com. Use discount code Cryptid10 for 10% off your entire order with Brock Blades. Awesome custom blades. So go make sure you check them out.
Tactical midget himself.
The tactical midget himself. Folks, this is part of the show where I like to talk about the 22 a Day Foundation. We lose 22 veterans a day to suicide, and that's 22 too many. The toll that the job takes on our uniformed men and women, and in first responders as well. Look at the Officer Down Memorial page, and you will see the number of officers we lose both in the line and outside of the line of duty every year, and the numbers are staggering. You won't find that in the modern media, but you do a little research on your own and you will see it. Think of all your friends and family that have worn a uniform. I don't care what capacity they wore that uniform in. Check on them once in a while to make sure they're okay. Check on your EMT friends, your firefighters, your law enforcement, corrections. Anybody that served in any kind of capacity, keep those folks in your hearts and in your hearts and in your prayers, because we owe those folks a debt we could never really repay. And I can attest firsthand that sometimes that weight is very hard to carry. And unfortunately, I've got a good network of friends I can reach out to if I need somebody to talk to. But if you can't find anybody else, shoot me an email, shoot me a text. If you've got me on Facebook, I'd be happy to chat with you. I mean, we all have our bad days. So keep the 22 a Day Foundation in your mind, and check out the Till Valhalla project, because they are really doing a good job helping veterans and their families. But as we wind up the show, been doing a quote. We're doing a toast at the end of the show. So it doesn't matter what you're drinking, just lift a glass of whatever and join us in a toast. The song's called the Parting Glass, and it's an old Irish drinking song, and it's supposedly about saying goodnight at the end of the day when everybody's going home from the bar. But if you read the lyrics, you listen to the song, it's talking about way more than that. It's talking about saying goodbye to the ones we lost along the way. So with that in mind, hope you guys will join me in a toast. And the toast says, "But since it fell into my lot that I should rise and you should not, I'll gently rise and softly call. Good night and joy be to you all." Good night, everyone.
Thank you for joining us. Catch us again Wednesdays and Saturdays on Ex Machina. A special thanks to all our channel members and Patreon supporters. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe.